This conference will now be recorded.
Bingo. The time being 4:45, I'd like to call the meeting of September 1st, 2022 to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Exactly.
So next order of business was to review and approve minutes from 8/4 and 8/18. A suggestion, but I will take the board's advisement on it, that with moderator Hanks coming in about 5 minutes, I'm wondering if it would be better to push 8/4 to the end of the meeting, and then possibly 8/18 because of the length, table it to the next meeting and when Selectman Jessamine is here.
What time is next one?
She will talk to us. She is scheduled for 4:50.
I'd be okay with that.
So do that.
Ooh, well, you're worse.
I'm ill.
Oh my.
I won't kiss you.
So, Mr. Scanlon, my suggestion was move 8/4 to the end of the meeting, so as not to impinge on moderator Hank's times, and then table 8/18 until the next meeting. It's about 12 pages of minutes, and hopefully, knock on wood, that Selectman Jessamine, who is ill tonight, will be here for the next meeting.
I'm okay with that.
Did we call you very late today?
Don't we have a time frame to post minutes?
Hold on.
I think that
They just need to be available. If somebody asks for them. You don't actually even have to approve minutes. So,
I think draft copies have to be available in 5 days. And
right,
Yeah.
if somebody asks, they would be there. It'd just be one draft.
Okay, so we'll push 8/4 to the end and table 8/18 until the next meeting. So we'd like to have moderator Helen Hanks join us this evening to discuss the upcoming elections, plural. May I ask how your husband is doing?
Much better.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bored, but better.
So, not him bored.
So these are to help guide what I want to talk about tonight.
thank you.
Sure. And then I know in advance, and I'd just like to thank Jeannie for her correspondence and passing information on for me, that I sent what could have looked like a very unruly electric document called the Election Manual of Procedures. So what I did was literally made you a copy of the specific section associated with the first duties of selectmen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just wanted to talk about what I would propose to the selectmen. Certainly leave it to your statutory authority, but first order of business is to brief you out that both political parties, pursuant to their authority under law, remitted letters on July 15th, which was the last date allowable to identify inspectors of the election. And so I've identified who they affirmed at the top of my notes. In reaching out to those participants, Marjorie, who has helped out in the past, is not able to be there on September 13th. She has a conflict, but hopefully, and she and I will stay in touch, we'll be able to participate at the general election. And then Mr. Dussault, who would have been new to the process, did participate in one of the in-person trainings, and after experiencing that, very politely indicated that he was not feeling very confident about performing the duties as an inspector of the elections. So that leaves us to RSA 658.5, which is referred to as alternates, and you could look that up in the statute. But it requires the selectmen to designate a following list of alternates to the list of appointed inspectors of the election, also known as ballot clerks. So I would like your support in a formal vote of in creating the list of Jackie Rushlow, Gay Bean, and Catherine Dawson as inspectors of the election, also known as ballot clerks, to perform those functions on September 13th, at least at this point. And Linda Burns and Deborah Shepherd have both been ballot clerks in the past. Linda Burns has probably done more elections than any one of us sitting at this table, and Jackie Rushlow as well. Gay Bean has helped us in the past for a portion of the day, and Catherine Dawson has served both as an assistant moderator and a ballot clerk in times of need. So it gives us, as a town, a good relief factor so that I'll call them our heavy hitters of the ballot clerk process, Linda Burns and Jackie Rushlow, can have a break throughout the day. So that's the first request.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question,
Yes.
just because I have to ask.
Yeah.
Doesn't create a conflict of interest where you're the moderator, where in the past, you haven't been the moderator, now you're the moderator, and a relative would be a ballot clerk.
Right. The two jobs are distinct, and there's no.
Okay, I just have to
It's
ask.
a, yep. Sure. Fair question. There is no impropriety in those roles.
Yeah, because Kathy was a ballot clerk
And I was an assistant moderator.
and Chuck was a moderator.
Right. So even as an assistant
Well, I didn't
moderator,
think about that. Yeah.
even as an assistant moderator. So for the public, Catherine Dawson is my mother, but also has assisted at the elections in the capacity as assistant moderator as well as a ballot clerk. And I myself, prior to being voted the moderator by the good townspeople, thank you, was an assistant moderator and would have had authority over her in that capacity only pursuant to statute.
So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. So then the other area of selectmen responsibility, and you'll see it called preparation of the polling place. And I referenced the statute. I'll give you a beginning part of that section of statute. I know you are all fully adept at looking at the statute, but it indicates that selectmen will basically arrange and establish and set up the polling place. Historically, poll workers have gone with the support of the Department of Public Works and set it up the day before, oftentimes at like 2 p.m. I'm not able to be there at 2 p.m. I'm happy to be there at 4 p.m. or 4:30, but I can't be there any sooner than 4 or 4:30 the day of the 12th. So I offer that as some assistance and guidance, but it is ultimately the selectmen that establish the location. What I did, you can giggle and laugh, on the third page, is I drew out a suggested layout for the location. And again, I'd like to thank Jeannie in advance for making sure the Winnisquam High School Gymnasium was set aside for our 2 voting days. But it is similar to the last several times we've set up the gym. It meets all the statutory requirements. I'd point out the section that refers to Challenger is literally a location where we placed 1 chair encircled in ropes, because by statute, challengers can sit 4 feet away from the ballot clerk and listen to the check-in process. And challengers are different than observers, so we created separate observer space up in the back corner to keep people out of the way. It's important that the bleachers are tucked in because it creates a good back buffer for our supervisors of the checklist. With the bleachers pulled out, all it does is creates an opportunity for public to want to go sit there, and that causes a complication. The lines are literally ropes. The little tiny squares are literally chairs. You can tell I don't have a little Visio software at home. And each table represents creating 4 tabletop voting locations with the cardboard foldouts that we have. And then our full array of booths. The accessibility voting booth is the one that we have and provided for people who have a visual or hearing or otherwise need that type of assistance through the machine that's been developed. And it is our typical exit. What's different during the primary than the general election is you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, we set up a little table called the undeclared table for people who come in undeclared, pick a party. They can, before exiting the polling place, re-undeclare themselves if they so choose to. So that would be my recommendation. I've been happy to be there on the 12th, but I can't get there until 4 or 4:30.
That's the day before you.
Correct.
Okay.
DPW has been a gracious resource to bring all of the polling place items, the ropes, the voting booths, and all those things in the past. So I would hope that the selectmen would continue to facilitate them as a resource to drop all that stuff off, and they've often helped set it up. They are a huge asset to our community. So as you digest that, the other statutory requirement is that the selectmen attend the day. To meet the best statutory intent, having 3 of you there at all times is the preferred schedule. If you cannot attend at all that day, you need to identify a delegate who will participate in your absence.
Jane Alden will be filling in for me.
So if that could be sent to me with her name, contact information, that would be excellent. And Jane has always been a good resource too.
Okay. I'll be there in the evening, but I cannot be there.
And the times that Jane can be there, that'd be
I'll do that.
perfect.
Yep.
If you could send that to me, ideally by at least Monday. I'm building a schedule. I have a schedule that I had drafted based on the hope that you would approve these 3 individuals for other members in the different capacities. But it would be great to understand of this team who's going to be there when, because your assistance will be a great resource to help make sure there's no electioneering going on outside in inappropriate locations. The undeclared table is a new table during the primary, so we need somebody there. And it just takes all hands on deck. All right.
I'll be there all day. So.
Thank you. Yes.
There's been a debate back and forth, and I'm curious what your take is on it. We have heard before that all selectmen need to be there all day. And I've heard it both ways, so I'm curious, you must know what I heard you say is going needs to be 3 all day.
So what I've read in the statutes, and then in what's called a moderators group and some dialogue with the Secretary of State, the 3 is a purposeful number because it represents a majority of the board. The statute ideally would prefer all 5 all day long. They don't, as long as, again, that there are 3. Thus, if there was anything that happened, there would be a majority of the selectmen to make a vote together. It becomes even more complicated. It's a great question in cities like Manchester when they have multiple polling places, and how do you do that? We're lucky to be the community we are.
Well, if we had 2 wards, then it would be.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's a great question. So the only thing I would reserve is I've been an assistant moderator. I may have forgot something, so I'll reach out through Jeannie and let her know and communicate that with all of you. But most importantly is to find out, once you discuss it, what the plan is for setup. And then I will obviously avail myself, and if you have recommendations that would differentiate from what I propose, please let me know. That would be incredibly helpful. I'm sorry, Pat, we typically borrow the tables and chairs from the school, so we'd have to communicate with the school that we would need to borrow them again. Pat?
If we have to be there per the RSA, I'm just trying to think forward. If we showed that to our employer, would they need to say, okay, it's to be there?
That's a really interesting question, and since it blends labor law and election law, you'd have to crosswalk both. What your privileges that day on labor law, and then your capacity as selectman. And I haven't done that matter. But it's a good question. Because everybody has the privilege and right to leave their employer to vote under labor law. But I don't know what the blending would be with regard to your roles and responsibilities.
Took me 12 hours to vote.
What'd you say?
Took them 12 hours to vote.
to vote.
Well, the other interesting part at the end of the night, and I reference it, you'll read it later, on the timing of a location, is because of the passage of new laws regarding overvoting. Anytime someone on a ballot overvotes a category on the ballot, the machine will reject the ballot, confirm for you in the window that it's an overvote, and that ballot is hand counted at the end of the night. So we'll be doing some enhanced communication through signage about overvoting, having testing the ballots last night and purposely testing the new overvote provision. That would be a cumbersome activity, especially on one of the particular ballots, because there's so many choices, could result in a lot of overvoting. And then undervoting is tabulated on the machine, and those won't be kicked out. It's only the overvoting.
Overvotes if pick 2 and somebody picks 3. right?
Exactly, yeah, just like, nice and simple. It says pick 1 and you pick 2, your ballot will be rejected and the voter will be at the ballot machine wondering why their voter card did not process through.
Jeannie, can we find out on that RSA about having the selectmen needing to be there and versus crossing that line with the employee? What would we do?
I don't understand.
So,
You want me to call the Department of Labor and ask them? Is that what you're saying?
right, is that I want to know if that's a valid point that we go to the employer and say, for RSA, such and such, we need to be at the polls because we're an elected official, selectmen, and they are required to be at the polls. I've never done that before, but I'm just thinking that if that's the case, we've always been able to subrogate people to fill in for us.
And you still can do
Yeah, so you
But
still
you need 3 people to be there.
do. And so as the schedule is built, at least 3.
Right.
But as you contemplate, and this is not an answer, it's just more to think about, because you can offer a delegate that could substitute during your workday, that might be the bridge.
Does that count as 3 people? Does that
The
count
delegate represents you as your Board of Selectmen position. And that's why it's very important that you pick a delegate with and I don't mean this offensively, but the competence to navigate that day and the confidence to act on your behalf in your capacity as selectman, because they'll hold that type of authority for you as your delegate.
for elections only, though?
For elections only, the only time you have delegated them. Yep.
Okay.
I hope that helps you think about that.
Just,
Helen, so you know, with my teaching schedule, there'll be chunks during the early part of the day where I won't be there and will be there.
Yeah.
But come 3:10, I'll be able to be there through the end.
So if I could just ask that you share that with Jeannie,
Absolutely.
and Jeannie and I can then share one sort of consolidated information set,
Yeah.
that would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah.
that's what I'm facing.
I mean, you're all welcome always to email me directly, but
And if my oldest son, who's 20, who filled in for me for part of the time in the last election, is available, I'll have him as well.
yes, again, just best way is to contact them in case they don't show. I'll know they're alive. That's important to me. And
It'd
also,
be important to me too.
yeah,
with
and
my
then
son.
also to reach back to you to let you know that your delegate didn't come. Okay. And then the other part is I want to make sure that I send resources to your delegate to the jobs I may assign them to do so they can come as fully informed as possible. Because again, that manual is very large, but if I could point to key sections for them, then they can read through that.
I thought the manual was made.
Mine didn't come yet. I've been reading a digital version.
What? You're welcome to use mine if you want.
I may take you up on that.
I'll bring it in to Kim.
Thank you.
All right.
The other piece within that large manual, just as a reflection of what we're audited on, again, this is a point of education, page 400 through 407, you don't have it in front of you, it's really if you're interested, gives a checklist of what the Attorney General's office will do when they come and audit the polling location, but it also gives you insight, again, as you set up the polling place, why I proposed the outline that I have to make sure we're in compliance. And ideally, I would love to be there on the 12th, so if DPW is able to do it a little later than typical, and the school's okay with that, that way I can just help fine tune anything that might have been mistranslated, and we make sure that the accessibility booth is functioning correctly.
So would you prefer, did I hear you correctly, you prefer to have the DPW there later so that you can direct them? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, but again, it's your decision, so I'm just being respectful that it's your
So what do
decision.
you want to do? Because it would be overtime.
Overtime.
Right.
The what, Jeannie? I can't hear you.
It would be overtime if we said yes to the DPW being there later, so Helen can make it there to do the setup of the overtime.
Helen is asking, if I hear you correctly, you prefer them to be there later so she can direct them on how to set up.
Yeah.
So the question to the board is, are you okay with approving overtime for them to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what I want to say.
Okay, thank
Helen,
you.
just a question on the bottom of page 1.
Yes,
Is the and sign supposed to be 7, number 7, in the first sentence on time
got an and sign?
from?
Oh, yes,
So just
that is supposed
just
to be a
checking.
7. Look at my
Knowing
fingers.
my keyboard, I know
Yep.
that.
Thank you. It's
Knowing
good
my
keyboard
keyboard,
awareness.
yeah.
Thank you. And so then again, the following day, through the coordination with the school, I would say that as early as people would arrive would be 6:15 a.m. that day. And we will likely be there at least until 8 p.m. I don't know how the school typically locks them. I am appropriately a little bit nervous about the overvoting.
Say over what?
Overvoting. And we do not want the town of Tilton to be any item in the newspaper around voting. We want to keep our solidarity around effectiveness in our voting.
So it kicks the ballot right back out
You
to
can't,
them.
yeah, if the machine will not read the overvote ballot. And at that point, the voter can stick it in the right-hand side, and or an informed voter can say, I would like to spoil this ballot and get a new ballot and re-vote without overvoting, and then we would put the spoil ballot on that side. But all overvotes get hand counted at the end of the night. Yep. Any other questions? Great. I'd just like to thank you all for your time and support in advance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll be in touch.
Thank you for the drawing.
You're welcome. What's my
So
graph paper?
9/12 is set up.
9/12 is set up, 9/13 day, so I'll just work with Jeannie to confirm a time on setup. And then there are enough actual human resources from the Selectmen or DPW team or combination thereof to set the polling place up.
Okay.
All right. And then I'll get a schedule of when you're available and any delegates, what did I say, by Monday, so that I can affirm the schedule for the day.
If you want to step out for an hour for lunch, do you have to have a delegate for that hour?
Technically, you need to have somebody there in case something happened and there needed to be a selectman's vote.
Okay.
So it's around the majority vote authority.
There's a snack table.
Jeannie, did I understand?
Yeah.
Do you want us to email our delegates and times and all to you, and then you forward it to Helen?
That's really what Helen wants. What do you
Would you prefer
It's
that?
easier for me just to get the point.
The one whole
Yeah, the
thing.
one whole thing. Otherwise, I may miss something, and this is so important. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
You are stuck in the sunlight.
I'll send it to Jeannie.
The refreshment table is right there, so I noticed
Do you
that
want
first.
that by Monday?
Ideally, obviously, if you need more time, Tuesday, but time is of the essence at this point because the 13th will be here right upon us. And
12 days.
I'm going to I've temporarily assigned a co-worker schedule based on those people, and then your addition helps fill the other voids. So I just want to put the right names in the right spot.
See, you having big poster boards in your living room.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Great. All right. I
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best.
Thank you.
And your families. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
You're welcome.
Let Jason know what they
I will. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pyro.
is there a way to lower the heat that's coming out up there? It's got to be heat.
It's cold.
No, it's not. I'm like roasting right now.
Pretty toasty.
It is toast. I don't know. It feels like it's heat coming out of there.
I think it's air conditioning.
It just feels warm air.
You're in a long sleeve shirt.
That might be the fans pushing it back down.
It might be. Could be. I
I
don't know.
usually get very toasty.
Sorry.
Maybe John's fine, so.
Great.
I'm on a radiator today.
He's not. Is there?
Want some like cold water?
Oh, no, thanks. Got my own iced tea right here.
Hey, they're running early. So you can-
I feel a difference already. I don't want to melt the chocolate.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thanks. Bye. Jesse's on his way right now.
There's some people online.
Looks like there are. For anyone who is online, we are waiting for our attorney prosecutor, Jesse Renone Smith, to come to discuss the next portion of the agenda, which is the fireworks ordinance. And he is on his way. We're a tad ahead of schedule. I hate saying that. Mr.
Chair.
Pearson.
I had some housekeeping items from last meeting. Might only take about 5 minutes. Would that be appropriate? To address the board?
Please, yes.
I had in my report from last meeting, and I also put it in my report of this meeting, I had a few housekeeping changes that I wanted to affect that the board has discussed from time to time, particularly moving the animal control line out of outside agencies. And in looking at where it belongs in terms of the state of New Hampshire's recommended chart of accounts, it really belongs in the health area. So I would want to move it up into the health and welfare grouping, and with an appropriate account change so that it will put it all into that area. The other things in the second item, the revenue lines pertaining to vehicle registration, we break these out into greater detail than we need to. We report them consolidated to the state, to the DRA. And in speaking with the town clerk, she saw no reason why, from a governance standpoint, that we couldn't report these in one line. So in other words, it'll just consolidate all those associated fees for motor vehicles into one. It makes it a lot easier to see how we're doing on an annual basis and where we are, for projecting out revenue and that sort of thing. So, and some of these are very small, and it wouldn't change anything the way they do business. They would still account for these individually. I would still record these individually, but when they're reported to the board or budget committee, it would show as a single revenue line for motor vehicles. And then lastly, the park cemetery, that was another one that's been talked about from time to time about moving that. And again, in thinking about those items that were required to support, such as the library, the cemetery is one that moving it from outside agencies, which is more of considered to be an optional type of support, to one that would be underneath the grouping of parks, agencies, and culture. So those were my three recommendations. And again, it doesn't change anything other than just where they appear in well, now that you get a weekly reporting, and then there wouldn't be any other change. So those were my recommendations, those three. And I can tell you, the budget committee has several times mentioned, why is animal control in outside agencies? It's something we have to do. Why is that there? It's like every year, it's like, okay, we'll see about moving that. And same thing with park cemetery. So I have no doubt that I don't think they would see any issue with any move like that. And again, it's just for our internal reporting. We have to report following the state's format. So I guess I'm just looking for some direction, consensus, vote, or otherwise.
Both of those questions arose last year in the budget committee in terms of for the animal control and for park cemetery, just about which line or which section they should be under. So I would say that we take the recommendation on all three. It's one list.
I'm okay with it. Because they're things that we have to have anyway, so they're.
Right. It's really more of a formatting for our internal reporting. We have to report things under a certain format to the state anyway. We have to follow their state reporting. So it's really more a matter of us and what's appropriate for reviewing and reporting for governance wise.
And they remain their own line under the.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. With the exception of the motor vehicle.
Okay.
Those
Yeah.
would be grouped as one
Yeah.
line that you would see. So I heard three.
I'm good.
You're good to that? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll just point out also on the back page of my report, I did list out those items that are that I'm waiting on, and I did get 3B this afternoon from the town clerk. But otherwise, the other items are open.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hot seat.
Just
Hi, how are you?
good.
So I think Jesse was just attending tonight to get direction from you on what he wanted to do.
So,
Yes, Selectman Constantine.
so in working with this for a few years, Jesse, this looks, did you do all the crossouts here, or was this yours, or is this prior to?
So I think that you're talking about the crossouts on the fireworks ordinance that was originally dated August 3rd of 2017, but looks like it was amended in 2021.
Right,
Those are not my amendments.
okay. So what is happening, particularly in the village area, and now we got a letter the other night from somebody up on Laconia Road that it's a weekly event for them, it's a weekly event in the village, that people are setting off fireworks in a very small containment, and not being very safe about it, and they're landing on vehicles driving by, they're landing on houses that are next door and abutting houses. So it's fine. I think the gist, when we tried to do this a few years back, the gist is that we want to be able to say okay to fireworks in the town, permitted fireworks, because there are some people that do have fireworks that have the venue to have fireworks, and it's, the fire department and police go out, they check it, they can permit it, and say, yes, you have plenty of space to shoot them off, that's no problem. But in a tiny space, sort of kind of like Chestnut Street, Prospect Street, Poplar Street, Cedar Street, where the houses are so close together in a small backyard where there's only a 20 by 30 backyard, where they have a fire pit going, and in the middle of all of that, they're shooting off fireworks. And this is an ongoing thing, and it's not safe. People are complaining because that's what's happening. And it's a weekly thing from, let's say, July to September. And I've had them on the roof of my house, my neighbor's house. You drive by on Chestnut, coming down Prospect Street, and sometimes they land on your car. And that to me is a safety, particularly a hot car or hood.
So I guess that leads me to my first question, which is, it sounds like you want to okay, as you put it, fireworks in the town of Tilton, but there are certain places that you want it to be prohibited in. In years past, having discussed this issue with this board, it seemed like the only area was what we would call the village district, which I think needs to be defined. But now it sounds like there's Laconia Road also, which
We have an email, and did everybody see that email?
Yes.
Okay, apparently up in the 1000 block of Laconia Road. I haven't been up there to view it.
So I think to restrict fireworks to a particular location like the village district, I think that there possibly is argument to be made there, which it goes to the purpose that's listed in the ordinance now. And so with that purpose in mind, I don't know that you can be selective and say, okay, if we define the village district as a place that's prohibited from fireworks altogether, then I think that that's okay. But if we cherry pick or hand pick certain locations within the town, then I think that that's going to be a constitutional issue.
Mhm.
So the question becomes, do you want to restrict fireworks everywhere or just in the village district?
I, me, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm trying to find that email.
For me personally, I would prefer not to restrict it everywhere, only because there are some legitimate places like Riverfront Park, Colby Road. There are some legitimate places if we decide as a town that we want to go on a piece of property and set them off for an event. I want that to be able to happen. But I want it stated in some fashion, in some way, that if you're going to set off fireworks, number one, it should be permitted. Number two, it should be in a venue that is safe from any other structures or distance from any other structures. Or can we limit that? I mean, if that way it says on some of the boxes that you buy, you have to be 150 feet from a structure. Well, some of the ones that are being set off in the village district are certainly not 150 feet from any structure. And that's not being safe according to the safety instructions on the box itself. So if, is there a way that we can say within the safety measures of what's going on with fireworks and the dangers of fireworks in itself, that you need to have a venue that's such and such a space and permitted. And it needs so many feet away from any given structure.
Okay, so the other question then that I wrote down and something that you touched on tonight was a permit. I am not aware of any permit that the town offers at this time for anybody to come down to town hall, say, and get this permit that authorizes them to use the fireworks that they have.
We have a template for a permit, but we never initiated the template for the permit. I think I gave my copy to you a long time ago. So we can certainly make up a permit.
Who did you give it to?
I gave it to Jeannie, but she's saying no, but that was my original permit that we created when we created the fireworks ordinance. There was a permit that was needed to be signed off by the fire, police, and selectmen. But that was a permit, but it wasn't, we never initiated the permit process because when this went out in the world, once we incorporated this and motioned it to be a thing, there were issues with it with the offices and said, no, we can't do this. And it came back to say that you as a prosecutor said you couldn't go out and actually prosecute this type of thing. And that's why we wanted to meet with you and say, well, fix it so that we can. And that's why the permit never got out there.
So I think that the permit also has to be limited to what statutes define as consumer fireworks. So
Right.
Fireworks that an individual is going to go out and buy and just use on a personal basis.
Right.
Because this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but fireworks are divided into a number of different classes. So if you have display fireworks or class B fireworks as they used to be called, then that is an individual who already should be permitted through the state, not through the town, but through the fire marshals and the Division of Safety that have special permits to put on. These are people that are putting on like fireworks shows.
Right.
And so they have special permitting that they have. And so I would assume then that you're just talking about the consumer fireworks.
Correct.
So do you want the ordinance to be limited to consumer fireworks only?
I would say yes. That'd be my opinion.
I mean, there certainly can be mention in there that, you know, if you were going to have some type of display firework or any type of firework that's not a consumer firework, that you have to abide by. There's not only state statutes under RSA 160B, but there's also federal regulations that govern those types of fireworks.
Right. So if you're in that class, you would have to abide by that class of fireworks in their statutes.
Correct.
Right.
Isn't that stated on 3 of 5 under exemptions in ours?
There, yes, there is part of it in there. It's just, yes.
Just part of it, though.
Mr. Scanlon?
Yeah, I was curious, does the state use a definition for thickly settled? Would that be something that you could apply towards, you know, not permitted thickly settled districts?
I don't know of any definition
they
that
don't use
defines thickly settled.
I know they, like, for speed limits and stuff, they say reasonable speed in a thickly settled district. Or something like
I mean, I think one of the things that we can talk about, but obviously this would have to be a decision of the board, is talking about what places are reasonable. So if you don't want them within, you know, a certain distance from a road, or you don't want them being used within a certain distance of, you know, somebody else's home or something like that, I think that that can go into the statute. But those things would have to be defined by us in an ordinance.
And Jesse, please correct me if I'm wrong. What you were insinuating before is that probably if we were to do ordinance with permitting, that it's got to be for the entire town, not just sections of the town.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we can do is, for instance, in years past, we talked about the village district,
Yes.
but the village district isn't really defined. I think I know what the village district is, but again, that would be a decision by the board to say, here is the village district, here is the perimeter of that village district, so that if I put that in an ordinance, I would think, like the fireworks ordinance is now, that would be a term that would be defined. So it would incorporate certain roads. And I think that it would abide by the purpose of the statute and for the concerns that Selectman Constantino raised tonight.
Mr. Platt?
Just throwing it out there, but let's say, however you list it on roads, and I live on the corner of 2 roads. So if road A was banned because, or I don't want to say banned, but road A was listed as a road that was not permissible, but road B on the other side of my property is, I can just see some of the conundrums that you might have, because because the village district also is a zoning term, so it's defined, but I believe you may have instances where, and I'd have to look at the map, but where maybe the odd side of the road is in the mixed use district, and the even side of the road is in the village district, and it's banned or not permissible. I don't want to say the word banned. It's not permissible. So then now you're going to get into, I know it's semantics, but it's just a thought.
Well,
So I think one of the things that you would look at in that instance is, if you are a corner property,
Yeah.
then I would say it would be based upon whatever your address is.
Right.
So if your address falls on one of the streets where you're not allowed to use it, then I think that's how you would. I mean, I think it's going to be very close. So, you know, do you know of any roads that, for the boundaries of our village district, that your example actually comes to fruition or is truthful?
I think there is where you get into mixed use, but again, I don't know what districts we would potentially look at, but if my memory, I'm only going off of memory, but where we received a letter from a citizen, I believe that section of town is one category, but that's a big piece of real estate in terms of, you know, you have areas that are densely settled, to use the term that Selectman Scanlon used, and then you have other areas that are almost rural, because they're not as densely populated. So I guess, but it's all the same category of zoning, and I'm just going based off of zoning.
Yeah, and I don't know that the different types of zoning necessarily matters.
Yeah.
But one of the things in writing this ordinance that we would have to look at is, if there are two roads where, somebody owns property on a corner and you say the village district in our town, is that example something that we have to be worried about, and how do we address it? I don't know if that's true or not now, because I don't know what the village district exactly is.
I don't think that you would come into that except, I don't think that you would come into it because it's railroad track to,
That's downtown district. Railroad track is downtown.
downtown incorporates the village. Just downtown is incorporated in the village district.
Is there a map that actually shows the exact boundaries of the village district?
Catherine has one.
I think Leanne
And
has
then
one too.
Leanne should have one too. That incorporates the village district. So it would be all the tree streets. Peabody Deer. It incorporates PB and Deer Street as well.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking. Like when you get into PVD and Deer, you're getting into mixed use.
Yeah, because it's
With
funky,
like
it's
West Main
funky.
and Winter on the.
But why would mixed use be an issue with something like that? It's being, you have mixed use. This is fireworks. This is not anything to do with mixed use. Is the zoning portion of it.
But you're defining streets, so. I don't know, I'm just,
But you're not defining the zoning use of the street. You're defining the use of fireworks and safety of the street.
Yeah, I don't think that the way that a particular road is zoned, or the way that a property on a particular road is zoned is going to make a difference in this ordinance.
Right.
But we could potentially run into the problem that you raised earlier with the two streets.
trying to look at all.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Scanlon.
so I'm assuming I don't have a problem with fireworks, but I understand the safety concerns. My concern is, like what Pat said, is that when somebody lights them up, that they're too close to certain other houses or structures or trees. So I'm guessing that fireworks say somewhere on there, or class A or C or whatever they are, say that should not be used within, you have a certain amount of open area.
It sounds like Selectman Constantino knows that. I haven't read the fireworks package, so I don't know if it
I'm
says
wondering
that
if
or
we
not.
could just say, because, I live on Morrison, and we're just as thickly settled as the village district, but, I'd be disturbed, but we do have a couple neighbors that have very large lots too. So if my neighbor across the street, who has the size of 4 lots, want to use them, they should be allowed to, but I would not think that anybody would rightfully permit me to use them on my land. So I'm thinking that we should have something based on, a square footage, or a diameter of open area, a safe area to light them off where, it would be a safe zone. And then that way, when you get to these people of large lots or a field or something like that near them, or that they own, they could use them. But if there are 3 houses in a row that are real tight, they can't squeeze them in their property. So I think that might be a way to go, but I don't know what those, based on the class, what officially the clearances should be.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that it should be part of the ordinance. I also would suggest that if we make a permit, that the permit should be, have that as a reminder that just kind of gives, not the entire ordinance, but says, refrain from being within, if it's 100 feet or 150 feet of a structure or something like that. Just so that when they get the permit, they can't say, well, we didn't know what the ordinance said, even though knowingly isn't an element of a town ordinance, but they can't say, well, we didn't know because it's right on the permit. So it's your obligation to read it if you sign off on it.
Right. Right. Some of these are 20 by 40 or 20 by 20 spaces that, with a fire pit in the middle that they're blowing them off.
Right.
And it's everywhere.
But my leaning would be to have it for the entire town, because as I think as John highlighted, just even in his neighborhood, which, and as we get out further east on Laconia Road as well, you've got condominiums, you've got by the lake, those folks are pretty close to each other as well. My lean would be to, if we were gonna have the ordinance, have it be a townwide ordinance, and permits needed to be, you need to have a permit no matter where you are in town, not just a specific area.
So it sounds like an ordinance across the entire town for consumer fireworks only that specifies a distance from other houses, other people's, other people's property, roads, things like that.
Signed off by the fire and police.
Would that be something that you reference also in your research of this, is consulting with the fire department?
Absolutely.
Should it be fire, signed up by fire or police, or just fire? I mean, I think it's
It could be just fire, but they don't.
wouldn't have to have somebody, once you get a permit, have to get.
Yeah, I was going to raise that point because I think that honestly, the fire department would be better equipped to look at an area and say, this is a fire hazard, which I think is what we're trying to prevent here, is where you don't want to catch trees or other homes on fire from the debris from the firework landing on roofs and things like that. Yeah. As far as the police getting involved, obviously, if there's a violation of it, then they would be the ones to enforce.
Which is what we want, is something more palatable to enforce.
Something with the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Would it, and I'm thinking solely of time, would it be on the front end though, to be able to have the police, if you have fire and police clearance on it, then they're gonna know that 102 Laconia Road is gonna have fireworks on the 18th. So if there was an issue, then they know that you understand what I'm saying, just cut
And
it
a
down.
copy of the permit.
Just in terms of being able to make sure that the police department can expedite things instead of having to go back and flip through.
Because the first person that they're gonna call is the police, and then gonna say, do they have a permit? And if they have a copy of that permit, then.
Just my thinking is just being able to streamline it a little bit, so.
Do you have any thoughts about going out with fire?
Well, speaking to somebody in fire, it's not the fire department's to do that, it's a fire marshal that does anything with fireworks. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't check a site. It just means that that's not their expertise. They might not take, for liability purposes, they might not sign off on that, just FYI.
Makes sense.
But I don't have a problem with the police, or at least having some kind of a track system where they go out and then we get a copy of it so that we're up to par with what's going on with sergeants and all that night. So.
Who's on fire marshal in that, Mike?
I don't. I know he's our he's safety. I don't know if he's considered fire marshal, but we're meeting on.
I was going to say the fire marshals are employed by the state, so
yeah.
I don't think we're not going to have a fire marshal.
No,
I mean, maybe there's one that lives in town, but we're not going to have a fire marshal on our fire department.
I can bring it up Tuesday.
John?
The other thing I was thinking of is, if you want to have a campfire in your yard, you get a fire permit. Unless it's raining. So you can get, I used to get a seasonal one, sign up in the year, They check the yard out, or you swear that there's so much room around it or whatever. And now, so there's a list of people who are cleared for the year. And it might be easier than if somebody came in on a Friday and got it, but didn't get it over to the police department. Now, you go to enforcement, I got one, but to have a permit.
Or they stopped in at a store on Saturday. Sorry, you're SOL.
That people could perhaps get some type of safety permit that would be not each time they fire it off, but they're cleared for it.
Where are they getting it?
And that's what I'm wondering. Like the fire department, they issue fire permits if you have a campfire, burn
Fire
permits
pits,
for leaves,
Right.
they're seasonal. I'm just throwing some possibilities out there.
We do that online now, they didn't go out.
For the fire permit.
Yeah, they get emails or they get something that lets them.
Yeah, you have to put in your information.
Put it
I
in.
speak from experience because we get them from time to time.
Let's start physical.
That's a little bit to digest now, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know that there's any online application for fireworks. I don't believe that there is any.
I don't know if any other towns have them.
There's a few others who have the permitting.
But permits, Pittsfield has a permit.
Yeah, do you just go online and do it?
I don't know. I just know that the permit's.
Mr. Google over here is gonna check it out.
He's gonna go get his fireworks permit in Pittsfield.
I was wondering if Pittsfield was one of the towns that I printed out because I
Because
printed
we
out a bunch.
use
So.
Pittsfield's permit to go by. That's the template. Now, do we, yeah,
And they have a municipal fireworks station.
should be a fine if they're intoxicated while putting a fire.
Usually Darwin takes care of
What's that?
that. Usually
Darwin?
Darwin takes care of that.
Yeah, they have a fire permit, which that they have.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, I'm Bill McLean. I'm the one that sent you I'm the one on 1011 Laconia Road.
Yes, sir.
And I sent along with that a link, which was a publication from the state, which gave a lot of the towns as far as fireworks and the permissibility, whether restricted or whatever, and all the items that you've spoken about is good. I thought 2017 was into effect a number of times. I called the police department. Is what I was mentioned in my email. I hope everybody got it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we did.
Yes.
Belmont, I think in the towns in the area, Belmont might be a good one to read because they do use the fire department, and you have to be certified. You must pick up a permit in order to put the fireworks on. I just happen to be in a very good area because I'm right on the lake. And last year during the month of July, I had 23 nights of fireworks between Tilton and Belmont. I'm just concerned of how many of those people actually were permitted to have them. How many bothered to stop at as far as Belmont, the fire department? if your ordinance is gonna be the police department, I was told, well, you can see, I just assume not have it on record, but you can read what I was told from the police department in Tilton. I was quite upset the night that one of the nights I called. Generally speaking, they like to fire them off into the lake. I understand that. But if the weather is inconducive for working with the fireworks, it's blowing back onto the trees, it's blowing back onto my house, it's getting and landing close to my boats, and more importantly, as far as the boats, I'm right beside the west side of Winnisquam Marine. That would be quite dangerous if that marine, the docks, caught on fire. We'd be all gone over here. So whatever you make as far as level permissible, I'd really hope it's considered the safety factor and who is going to cover any of these situations. Time period. New Year's Eve, I was had fireworks over here till 1:30 in the morning. It gets to the point of ridiculousness. I'm probably over speaking my turn, but whatever you come up with, I hope you do consider the taxpayer that's here, because the ones that are firing them off aren't locals. And we do have, of course, the sales right across the bridge in Belmont for the fireworks. But whoever is going to be the certificate, and I think that needs to be done. And if they don't have it in their hand, of whoever's coming out to check with them, there should be a substantial fine. Some towns, when I was reading, some was $250. I was reading 270. That's how I started getting in trouble calling the police department. Is I was going by the old 2017 ordinance that Tilton had. I thought it was in effect. I did not know it was not in effect. But that's all I'd like to say. I do believe we need one. I think we need to have it in there. So many people. This year's been quiet, and thank goodness, because I think it's the economy. They've gone up so expensive, people can't do it. And now I notice in the newspaper they've got them on big sale for Labor Day weekend. So I guess I got to get my earplugs. So thank you, and I'll give you back your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vic.
I'm on the Belmont Fire Department. It doesn't regulate it. You do have to submit a sketch. You have to have written consent of the owner. You have to notify abutting properties of the date and time of the fireworks display. The applicant must be the property owner or produce written consent from the property owner to discharge Class C fireworks on their property. So that might be the consumables. The applicant must produce a plan, and then they must read and understand the ordinance. Where's the ordinance?
What I thought was very interesting is that by having that permit, and somebody signs and fills it out, that they are now putting their name on it and might be now held responsible if something went awry. That might be a good thing, that, if you put your name on it, you launch them off in your yard and hit somebody else's house.
Yeah. Just during 4th of July weekday, instead of issuing it for a day, they issue it for a week around 4th of July.
So that might be a good reference.
Yeah, it's fairly in-depth. They have a whole fireworks ordinance. So, town of Belmont. And that'll be interesting because we do border Belmont on the lake, so.
Would you like to go? Would you like to take a look at that and then?
Yeah, I'll take a
And then-
look at it, and I can certainly use that as a guideline. One of the things that's in our ordinance now is about cleanup. So if you don't clean up, it specifies that you can't be under the age of 21 and not shoot off a firework without somebody who is older than that. That's pursuant to state statute anyways. So they're held accountable under the RSA 160-B be for that, but do we want a separate fine for not cleaning up, or do we not want to address that at all?
I think we do, because there's, in the village, they're young and sometimes under 21 without a parent present.
Oh, and a separate fine for cleaning up, I think.
The way that it's written now is that if for any violation of the fireworks ordinance, if the police get called once to enforce it, it's a written warning. The second offense is a fine of $250, and then a third or any subsequent violation after that is $500.
Minutia cleanup would be, their property can remain there, but if there's any blowover, using that term, that's what they have to, okay?
Right.
So if it's on their property, they can just leave it, but if there's blowover, there's anything on public street, they have to clean it up.
Right.
Seems fair.
And so the question that I have about the fines, I mean, I think it should be streamlined so that the fines associated with the ordinance should remain the same no matter what provision of it you violate, instead of getting overly complicated and separating out different fines.
Yes.
The other thing I would suggest is putting an annotation in there that the second, third, subsequent violations should be within a certain amount of time. So, for instance, like a 12-month time frame, so that the clock restarts.
I agree.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Any other questions for me about the ordinance?
I think we got it.
Okay.
We guessed it.
I have a question, not related to the ordinance for you, Jesse.
Okay.
I'm assuming that you know that there's an ongoing investigation into the cemetery at 785 Laconia Road.
I do know that.
Okay. Is it proper that we have discussion in a public forum about that? Because I've always assumed that there should be no no comments on an ongoing investigation as to jeopardize that investigation. And I'm just curious if that should be there, because it is on our agenda tonight, and I figure go to the source.
I'm going to preface this question by just adding one piece, which is I'm not going to entertain questions tonight about the cemetery. I think that there are a lot of factual-based questions, and because there is an ongoing investigation, I am not going to indulge questions about the cemetery. Because your question, I think, is a legal one, I will answer it, but I want to limit my
I'm only asking
responses to that
legality
question.
if should we be discussing it.
Based on my review of the last board meeting, the property owner of the cemetery, Mr. Obakov, was here. He made some representations about what is forthcoming. I know that the investigation at this point in time, without getting into too many details, has been stunted a bit by the fact that we have learned that some of the records that we wanted are now in a supposedly sealed state. What I would assume has occurred is that he has consulted with legal counsel. Based on, again, what I saw on the video between the property owner and the board, if I were a board member, I would refrain from discussion about the cemetery, because there is a criminal investigation that's going on through the police department. I will make no representations about whether or not that's going to actually result in any criminal charges. I don't know. But if he has consulted with legal counsel, and if that's part of the reason why some of those records are no longer available, then there could also potentially be civil litigation. And so I would not make any representations as a public body about that, especially because it seems like there is contention between the property owner and this board.
Thank you.
Jesse, thank you. And not to cut you off, but we have a public hearing that's about to start.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The time being 6:01 PM, I'm going to open the public hearing to accept and expend funds under the provision of New Hampshire RSA 3195B 2 through 4, specifically to accept FEMA grant funds in the amount of $56,617.14. These funds will be used for the upstairs communications equipment. Are there any questions from the board?
I do. I thought we already used other funds for the communications equipment for here.
There's some funds augmented to include lighting improvements over and above the funds that we're receiving.
Can you be more specific?
Well, let's see. It was what was approved in the ARPA, up to $10,000 additional for, so that, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but all the AV communication equipment was roughly 45,000. And then to do the lighting, electrical, and other improvements to go along with that, it was not to exceed $10,000 of ARPA funds, which was approved at your last meeting, maybe the meeting before that. So anyway, that's.
So this is all ARPA money that we're allocating, or is it FEMA money?
This is FEMA.
So $45,000 that we used, or roughly $45,000 that we used for the communication and AV systems and all of that, did that come from ARPA money, or is that coming from the FEMA money now?
That's coming from FEMA money now.
How did we pay for it? We already have it.
So this money, this was what was actually received earlier this year, and accepted here at this meeting. But the board had originally approved it in either ARPA or FEMA. And at one point in time, we weren't sure whether we were going to receive it, but we have subsequently received it, which is why the board needs to accept it to approve the expenditure.
Any other questions from the board? So I'll open up for any questions from the audience online. Mr. Scanlon?
Does that have to be open for a period of time?
No.
Okay.
We're good.
Oh, someone just, they went green, I don't know what that means. Around the edge. That means on the top.
I think that's us.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that picks up when we talk.
oh, when we talk, okay.
It's advanced technology. The time being 6:04 and hearing no more questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm now opening the public hearing to accept and expend funds under the provisions of New Hampshire RSA 3195B, sections 2 through 4, specifically to accept funds from the State of New Hampshire Highway Block Grant Program in the amount of $53,609.72, and the municipally owned bridge allocation in the amount of $75,992. These funds have been made available for the passage of Senate Bill 401, which directs the funds can be used to supplement, excuse me, not supplant, that is, add to not replace funds, local budgeted funds when providing services that repair, maintain, and construction of municipal bridges repair, maintain Class 4 and 5 roads, or acquire the equipment necessary to maintain Class 4 and 5 roads. Any questions from the board?
What were the amounts, 75?
The amounts were, the amount from the State of New Hampshire Highway Block Grant Program was $53,609.72. And the amount from the municipally owned bridge allocation was $75,992.
Do we have a copy of that?
I mean, in the file?
In a file? I mean, the chairman is not the only one that should have a copy of that. It should be all of us selectmen that have a
That was
copy of it.
something that was sent prior, but I can certainly send it again.
I didn't see it.
I'm happy to send it again. Are you saying you want it now or you want it?
I'd like to read what he's reading. Thank you.
Well, all right.
Nice chunk of change. I'm going to use the touch tone calculator with that.
Only one
Adjustment
person
here.
can use that.
Right. I don't want to, just in case, I don't want to break it, just in case, you know?
Very smack that.
Just for anyone who may be listening, that total of this portion would be $129,601.72.
I concur on your amount, except for I didn't put the 72 cents.
It's right there.
I rounded.
While members of the board review documents, are there any questions from the audience online as well?
So what do we use? What do we use that money for?
So it, as the chairman said, that you can use the funds for repairing, maintaining, and construction of municipal bridges. You can also use the money to repair and maintain Class 4 and 5 roads or acquire equipment necessary to maintain Class 4 and 5 roads. And so as an example, I talked to Kevin about, what he could possibly use the funds for. And he talked about, was it the mowing attachment for the trackless to help mow the sides of the roads?
Flail mower.
So that's
For
something.
what?
Flail mower
Oh,
for the tractor.
So that's something that at some point, once these are accepted, I'll probably come to the board and ask to make that purchase.
Any other questions from the board? One last time for the audience. Anyone in the audience? So the time being 6:10 and hearing no more questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. Next is our non-public section.
Wait, do we have to vote to accept these? Do we have to make?
Yeah.
No.
You didn't have to vote to accept, I'm sorry, I missed that. You didn't have to vote to open or close public hearing, but to accept the funds, yes.
Okay.
My bad.
That's what I meant, was
Yeah.
to
Yes.
accept the money.
Go two separate ones. Yes, Selectman Constantino.
How can we vote to accept the funds if we don't have an exact place where these funds are going to be used?
You don't need an exact price to where the funds are going to be used. because the board, the selectmen have the authority to accept and expend funds. You don't need to identify where you're going to spend them. You'll do that at some other date. Never had before, since I've been here, had a specific place that you're going to spend the funds.
They're unanticipated funds, so you would just,
Well, I get that, but you have an idea where you're gonna spend them.
I don't.
Mr. Scanlon?
Perhaps make the motion to accept the funds, and they're used to be determined at a later date.
yeah, I think that's all we need to do is accept it.
Vote to accept and expend. That's your right to do that. You have the ability to do that under the RSA.
I was thinking that we would, and that might satisfy what Pat's asking, that we'll determine at a later date.
Well,
The second set of funds, there are parameters that are already laid out for.
So what I'm saying is it doesn't, allow funds to just go into a pot that can be taken out of. I'm not sure.
I wanna make sure that the board allocates the money.
you don't,
And that, yeah, that just doesn't go into a pot that's taken out of without.
yeah, we don't spend anything without the board's authority to begin with. So if there were anything that we're going to expend money for, we'd come to the board and ask for that approval. That's what we've always done. And if it's anything over a certain amount, we get 3 bids. So I don't know what's different.
We should probably do 2,
Yes.
correct? Because they're separate, because it's separate. I'll make a motion to accept the FEMA grant funds of $56,617.14.
Second,
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor of accepting the FEMA grant funds, $56,617.14, please say aye.
aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain.
1 abstention. I'll make a motion to accept the New Hampshire Highway Block Grant of $53,609.72, as well as the municipally owned bridge allocation in the amount of $75,992.
Second,
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor of accepting the New Hampshire Highway Block Grant and the municipally owned bridge allocation, please say aye.
aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Abstain.
Abstention. Motion passes. Okay. We'll now move into non-public with the time being 6:14 p.m. I make a motion to enter into non-public session per RSA 91A32A. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a public meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted.
Second,
Motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Ruggles, yes.
Ira, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
We're now in non-public session.
This conference will now be recorded.
I make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session of September 1, 2022, because disclosure would adversely affect the reputation of a person other than a member of the board.
Second,
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
aye.
For anyone who may be online, we are deciding to forego the discussion of the cemetery this evening, and so we will move on to Selectmen's reports. First up is Selectman Constantino.
I have a couple of things that I'm going to forego because I really want Selectman Jessamine here when we talk about them. First off, I would like to say thank you to the Tilton School for hosting the concert series. Thank you for Titus for coming up from Florida and continuing the Hartwell legacy. And this past Friday, because of Selectman Jessamine not being available, Smitty's stepped up and came to our emergency run and gave us some popcorn to pass out. So huge thank you to Smitty's for that. It was a huge hit, so thank you very much for Smitty's for that. This past Sunday, I've never seen so many people on the dance floor in 14 years that I've been attending the concerts. It was very, very well attended. So next year, there's a few tweaks to get out of it, getting the seniors up the hill and so on and so forth, little things to do it, but it was a very nice venue. It was a very nice atmosphere up there. A lot of people loved it, so thank you. The executive committee has changed their meeting from September 19th to September 26th due to illness.
Was that the senior center?
It's at the senior center, yeah. Yeah. It's at 4:30, I believe. And there are two people that have approached me, Jeannie, that would like to join the Economic Development Committee, business owners downtown. Is that feasible or no?
Well, typically what happens is the Economic Development Committee, if somebody wants to join, we bring it to the Economic Development Committee and they say yes or no. I know one person who has already filled out an application is Stephanie Paulus, but
That's one.
but that's
Billy Lawrence is the other. Okay. Okay, and are we doing anything with the trailer person at Gaslight Village?
that's going. I talked to her to see if she was coming. She said that she was going to the zoning board to go through the appeal procedure.
Okay. Okay, and my last but not least is the chief here.
You have been on.
He was on earlier.
Let me ask him to come back.
If you got it right there, yes.
I just sent a text.
While you're doing that, I have on the corner of Prospect and Academy, the old chiropractic building, the white building. I sent Jeannie an image. Pass it down so you can see. There's two RVs, one in which I believe someone is living there. I have come by there at midnight, one night, 1 a.m., another night, morning, and on a Sunday afternoon, and lights are on, people are in it, and then on a Sunday afternoon in that tent, that screen house, they have like a yard sale going on.
Saturday and Sunday.
Yep. I don't believe that should be going on to my knowledge, but could we ask either the health officer or the code enforcement.
What do they use for
I think
bathrooms?
it's really, I think it might be health first.
I think this
I'm
was-
not sure.
What's this at? Where is this at?
On the corner of Prospect and Academy. Across from the Family Resource,
Is the southwest
Center.
corner.
right at the corner.
Southwest corner, maybe?
When you pull up to the light on the right.
Southwest.
Did you say you sent that to me? Because I,
Text message.
all I got is a picture of the box.
Oh, it has a eye, I'm sorry, has one of those little eyes there that says it didn't make it. So let me just do it again. I'm sorry, Jeannie. Maybe it didn't like you. All right, try that.
What's that?
What do you think?
Willy Wonka.
Got that?
Gets transmitted.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the trailer in the back that I believe that somebody is living in now.
Well, there was one. I don't know if we should discuss it. There's one parallel to the road. And I don't think anyone was living in that one, but now. there's a
No,
new
I
one.
don't think that
There was a new one that's perpendicular to the road. and
perpendicular
I
to the
think
road, but I don't think anybody's living in that. And while we're waiting for Abe, I did see the flyer for the Halloween party here
Wow,
in,
Freddie. Wasn't that last week?
the selectmen usually do the costume parade. Jeannie? And then Deidre and the Tilton Rotary do the trunk or treat.
Yeah. That's what we have. This is the way it's always, we just updated the only thing that, well, it's in your FYI file. The only thing that we changed was the date and the time, because last year, for my notes, last year they said that it should be done a half an hour earlier.
Yeah, I agree with that, but,
And then the other change was Kevin recommended that the traffic be detoured from School Street to Pillsbury Street to Prospect because of the condition of the cabin.
okay, I misunderstood because when I read your note, it said that she agreed to work with the Tilton Northville Rotary Club to manage the event,
Trunk or treat.
just the trunk or treat event.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that on the 29th?
what's that?
Is that on the 29th?
Yep.
The event?
Well,
FYI.
it's in Jeannie's thing for us to decide what night.
Oh, look at that.
I say let's move on, and then when Abe comes, we can circle back to what I want.
Is that, so have we decided on this date, or is that?
I was gonna wait for your report.
Oh,
You have it in your report.
I know, I just didn't know why you brought it up, so. I
Well,
thought-
because I saw it in the FYI,
Oh,
that's why.
gotcha.
Okay, and next I have two pieces. Just one is a reminder going out that the population on the top of the hill on top of School Street increases significantly tomorrow. So with the Tilton school students returning, some are back as of today, but the entire school moves in tomorrow. So there'll be a lot more folks crossing the streets up there, just to make everyone aware that they will be back in session, and more teenagers will be crossing School Street, a significant number. The other piece that we had discussed, that we discussed a couple of times is as a board, is thinking about temporary bridge and temporary bridge situation for the island. And I know that we've discussed and had and talked about, you know, a range of, in terms of range of cost. But I wonder if it's, or I'm thinking that maybe it's time that we either say yes to the temporary bridge, or we are just going to have to, or no. And I think it's time to think about whether we are going to do it or not. So thoughts from the rest of the board.
And that's about $350,000 to put in a temporary bridge. And I did get a call from a resident asking what the, you know, when the island was going to be opened back up.
Without the temporary bridge, we're looking at least 2024, 2025, correct?
Correct.
And with the temporary bridge, we would have to go for a warrant article in order to spend that kind of money. A bond or something. Mr. Finance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, talking to the chief. So,
But
I did not hear your question.
Oh, is that coming back?
Well, one way or the other, he's gonna be available to answer.
So, Mr. Pearson, the question was the approximate $350,000 for a temporary bridge would have to go, Selectman Constantino was asking, would it have to go to a warrant article for bond on that?
I would imagine, yes. Yep.
What would be the time frame if it passed at town meeting for a temporary bridge? What would be the time frame in getting one?
So I would say that if there are two different kinds of bridges. It could be just a regular temporary pedestrian bridge, or it could be a bridge that would be less, more about a construction bridge. So that one of the things when we met with the engineers, they suggested is that you do the temporary bridge and have it be a construction bridge and go upstream a little bit so that when you're ready to dismantle the historic bridge, you could use that construction bridge for that purpose. So the construction bridge would be a little less expensive because it's not going to be pretty. It's just going to be functional, but it would let you get out to the island. I mean, we're still gathering all the costs. One of the other issues we have to deal with is the overhead utilities and moving the bridge, and you know, how do you get the bridge out of there with the utilities in the way? And that's what the engineer suggested, is if you did a construction bridge, you could get over to the island and take the pieces of the bridge off from the island and bring it back over the construction bridge and avoid having to move the utilities. I am trying to get, Kevin got me poll numbers the other day, consolidated those polls, and I'm trying to get an estimate from them of what it's going to cost. You know, because if it's going to cost less to move the utility poles than to put in a bridge, you know, that's something we need to know too. But the bottom line, I think, is do you want to make that investment, whether it's construction or a regular pedestrian bridge, for $350,000 to $450,000, whatever it might be, or would you rather save the money and keep the island closed till 2025?
Well, if I may, we still need to get the bridge off the island.
Yes.
And so we're gonna need some type of a bridge to get the bridge off the island.
I don't know that. I mean,
Okay.
what they suggested was a construction bridge that you would be able to get onto the island and bring the bridge off from the island side and take it off through the construction bridge. Otherwise, what would happen, it would be from the highway side, but you'd have to move the poles to get the bridge off. There's a lot of
Ifs.
yeah, a lot
We
of
have to
details,
decide
and
on
I'm
that?
still gathering information.
we leave that open for now.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to make that decision when we don't know the other parts of that. Because it's like, it doesn't seem reasonable to spend $350,000 just for the use of the bridge for the island when Tilton School is so gracious enough to let us use that. If we don't need it for the bridge, it's ridiculous to spend that $350,000. But if we need it, I mean, because it's gonna take a year to get town meeting and then probably maybe 6 months or 4 months to get a bridge. Now you've gone through the summer anyway, that summer at least for the concert series. And now you're into almost the fall, winter. So you're not gonna get on there until whatever, the following year. So you've lost that time. Now we have to figure out how to get the bridge out of there to get repaired. And that's really where we're at right now. That's what seems more feasible.
So would it be, and not to put it at the top of the list, but to just sort of push Consolidated to give an I mean, whenever we can, to get them to just, I know you are trying. I didn't, wasn't insinuating that you were.
They're extremely hard to get.
It's,
I know.
especially if you're calling their customer service.
Right,
So,
they are also, they are the party relative to Tilton, Tilton School on the wall. It's not Eversource, it's Consolidated. And I discovered that last week. So now I'm trying to get Consolidated on that as well.
and I don't want to belabor this any longer. Is there any, I'm going to guess yes is the answer, but if temporary bridge becomes an answer, we have to work with DES, et cetera, as well, in terms of that installation?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a piece of it.
Okay.
I think it'd be a small piece of it.
Yeah, but I'm sure that it would have to.
I used to have a public relations person for Consolidated. Do you have a number for them?
I'm going to the political end.
Okay. Better.
Okay, that's good. Mr. Jessamine isn't here, but we're going to circle back to Selectman Constantino because Selectman Constantino's favorite police chief is here. He's also our only police chief. So.
Favorite. Okay. So I thought long and hard about this, and I'm not going to be the most favorite person on earth, but it bothered me 2 weeks ago when myself and other members of the board made a decision on a policy, and I did not ask the chief what his thoughts were about, and I'm going to put him on the carpet. I want to put him out here in the firing coals and ask him, because I would really like to make a motion to reconsider our policy on dogs at the PD based on what chief has to say.
Step up.
Please. You don't want to deal with Gail.
Right.
Gail wants to hear your voice.
Yes. Oh, all right. So what I would say with that is, as long as there is a good plan put aside with police, because obviously we have people coming in and out of the police department, with your ventilation, if anybody has allergies, but also who is going to be taking care of the dogs if we have a major incident. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have someone like dispatch who's in patrol area or dispatch area, they are mainly there their full shift. Anybody else, like prosecutor, administrator, anything like that, is going to be at the police department unless they have to go to court. Now, officers would be different, and that's what I would, just as long as there's a plan, because what happens is if you bring a dog in, you put the dog in the kennel, that's fine, but if you are now at a scene, let's say it's a fatal accident or a fire scene, and you have to be there for hours, doing road detail or anything like that, who is going to tend to the dog? And then just to make sure that there's a common ground on that. Other than that, I don't think there's an issue. I know that when I got the policy, it's obviously no vehicles, which is good. the kennel, and the dog needs to be leashed, things like that. So that's kind of how I feel. I just want to make sure. And also, you know, you got to be fair all the way across the board. So some of the patrol officers would have to, it says like in an office, well, patrol doesn't have an office. They have a patrol room. So you just have to make sure that if someone brought a dog in, so those are the things. And for me, it would be more in an emergency, or you are having some troubles because we've gone to a different shift and you're working a longer shift, and it's hard for you, obviously, if you live across town, to get home to and from and all that stuff. But I also know that it's part of having a pet and kids and everything else. So, yep.
So where would let's say we have patrol officers and let's say 2 people bring in their dogs. Would 2 crates fit in a patrol room?
I would say but depending on how big the dog is, let's put it that way. So if there was a small dog, yeah, it's a possibility. Is it going to be in the way? You'd have to tuck it to the side. Is there another room that you could potentially use? Yes, but you just have to make sure that if that's under the policy of the town, those are things you just have to look at to make sure.
When you mean under the policy of the town,
So
it is the town policy.
From what I remember, I've only had it for a couple of weeks. It's stated in their office, and dispatch has their office. You know, I have my office. Sergeants have their office. Patrol is more a common area. So you just have to make sure that if you put that animal in or pet in another room, is it violating that policy? So, and if you put it in the patrol room, as long as those dogs get along and they're not getting in the way of patrol, I would say it'd be fine.
Has anybody brought their dogs in yet? I don't want names, I just want
Yes.
numbers.
Yep.
Have there been any issues whatsoever?
Nope, not that I've seen. Nope.
Have they put them in crates?
Yes, crates, leashes, things like that. Yep.
For how long? Wait
Not
a minute, you said crates, leashes?
Well, leash, if you're walking in the police department, if you're walking around the hall, you have to have the dog on a leash. So, and then the crates, yes, if someone brings a dog in and they have to go to a call or they have to handle something, the dog then goes in a crate. So that has happened. And it's not for a long period of time. But I've had discussions with the people that are bringing the dogs in, to make sure they're not, I wouldn't say misusing, but just make sure that if you have something planned for the day, you have appointments, you go to court, you're doing things, you need to make sure that you're managing, because it's only your responsibility. It's your animal. And to know that if you are stuck on a scene, because you just never know, and if you get stuck at a traffic scene or an accident or any kind of emergency, who is going to take care of that dog? Are you going to then depend on another officer or somebody at the PD, that's not their responsibility. So I made that apparent, and it seems like we're all on the same page.
So, question only because apparently where I work, certain people who bring their dogs in. So the dispatcher has their dog in, and the dog got to go do its thing outside.
Mm-hmm.
Can the dispatcher still answer their calls?
Yes, they have a headset,
Okay.
so they're able to answer the phone and use the headset that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So I am the liaison to the police department. And I did have this discussion with the chief before I brought this to the board. So this wasn't a surprise to him, and I didn't bring it forward unless he was good with it. So if there's something going on that you're not happy with it, this is news to me. I don't know why this is coming up, because that's what you've named me for as liaison, and I did my job. And then after talking to him, brought it to you. So I'm not sure, you started out by saying, you know.
I never got to ask the chief anything, and so that's
Right,
why
but
I
is
didn't.
it, I know, but I guess that's what I was trying to understand, isn't that?
Well, the chief was here 2 weeks ago and he left, and I never got to ask the chief about this. And you know, I'm a huge animal lover, and I thought about it, and then I thought about
No,
dogs being on patrol, and I started thinking about them being in a crate for hours.
and I understand that.
Nothing to do with you.
Well, it does kind of, because if I am the liaison and you've asked me to be that, you would know that I've had that conversation with him before I brought it to the board.
I apologize, I never even gave it a thought.
Yeah.
I really wanted to get his opinion of it, because you really didn't speak too much other than the chief agreed, and I just wanted to hear his feedback.
Okay.
And he's lived with it for, 2 weeks? And I wanted to get his feedback on what it's been like for 2 weeks.
Right. And in the discussion, because we had a lengthy discussion with some of the selectmen about that a dog, if it didn't have an office, it would have to be crated. So those were all issues that were covered.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I know, we talked about that,
Okay.
but see, that's what bothers me the most, is when, as a dog lover, to be crated that many hours.
It's not a.
I know you might think that. I have a very different opinion of crating a dog for 8 hours, so.
Well, it's not 8 hours, but I mean.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be, potentially.
Yeah.
If they're at a scene of an accident, or if they're at a domestic or whatever, it could be hours.
Yeah.
If they're at a fire scene or a major accident or fatality or whatever, it could be. And that's what I'm concerned with that. And that person, unless they have someone else in another arrangement to take that dog out, where are we? We don't know where we are. That's all. We don't know. I don't,
If I could talk. So when Jeannie says that we spoke about this, we did at a different time. I was never told that we were going to speak about this in front of the board that night. I was a little baffled that the board did not want to speak to the chief who runs the department and is put in that place to run that department. And why it's good feedback. I mean, it's good feedback for you to ask the chief what he thinks, since I do go to these calls. I have been an officer for 16 years. So I can see where Jeannie's coming from. We have had that discussion. I can see where Pat's coming from. She wants to ask the chief. I'm on both sides. I think it's right that if you guys want my opinion and want to know, and if it's going to come down to me having to reprimand somebody or do something because it's under the roof of the police department, I would like to be involved in something like that, so that you can just ask me those questions and I don't have to come back and sit here and kind of be awkward. I'd like to know how you guys feel and get it done with and move on. That's how I feel about that. I just want to be included.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Actually, you answered a lot of the questions that I had that night, Jeannie, that you talked to. Then a couple others I didn't even think of. But
yeah, because it's just a different situation when you have a dog or an animal or a pet at a town hall or anywhere else. We have to go to emergency calls. We have to go in and out of the police department. We have to leave, and you just want to make sure that dog's not sitting there and not in a kennel, not being able to be tended to. That's the only thing I had. That's the only thing I really wanted to just make sure that we were good with that. And it sounded like you guys had a good discussion and came up with some good ideas, and I was great with that. So
I think we just do on a temporary basis, right?
Till December 31st.
Until December 31st, see how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or the other thing is, I'm not sure who made up the policy. My concern before was that the policy that was for our town hall would not match what you would have at your building, and that possibly there would be some adjustments that would have to be made from that. I don't know. And they're all good with that.
Can you send that out to us, what you did? Okay.
Or any other, well, you might have to change them again before December 31st.
Yeah. Once you kind of see what goes on, and maybe there's a little tweaking you have to do here or there, but it seems like it's working fine. We've had a couple of people bring the dogs in, and they're great. So it works. It does. So good. Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Anything else? Good. Okay.
Mr. Pyra, you're next. Selectmen's reports.
Selectman Constantino's still on my thunder tonight, so I'm good.
Mr. Scanlon.
No, I'm good.
We will move on to the town administrator's report.
First action item is the choosing of the date for the Halloween. And in the last couple of years, the board has had the Halloween on the Saturday, the last Saturday of the month. And Halloween's right around the corner, so just wanted to check and see what the board wants to do.
Motion that it be the 29th and we start a half hour earlier.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is this for trick or treat or is this for the event?
The whole
event
thing?
Downtown. This is downtown.
Yeah, I see.
So this is not for trick or treating.
It's the downtown event.
Okay, that's all. I just want to clarify.
So that makes it what time, Jeannie? You got the paper down there.
4:30. 4:30.
The costume parade is from 4 to 5 and trunk or treat is from 3:30 to 5:30.
Any other discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes.
Second item, town hall assessment. The board had approved on June 2nd meeting to begin the work on phase 1 activities. We did get one quote for rubber roof and we're working on getting 2 more quotes. In the meantime, there are holes and that need to be patched and repairs that need to be made, approximately $3,000. The question to the board is, do you want to wait to get the 2 other quotes for the repair work, or are you comfortable moving forward with the repairs? I don't know, with everything that's going on in the construction world, if we're gonna miss an opportunity to get this fixed before winter sets in, so that's my only concern. But if you wanna wait to get the other 2 quotes, that's fine.
Where, can you tell me where the money's coming to get fix this?
Do we have any money in maintenance on?
Are we doing the 130 to 150,000 one?
I would think you'd want to wait to see the other 2 quotes before you make that decision. My immediate concern is the repairs that can be done before winter gets here. The holes and the.
So maybe the other work won't get done until the spring?
No, I don't think,
The roof may not get done until the spring?
yeah, possibly.
Okay.
And I want to wait to get 2 more quotes. I had Kevin look at it, said it looked good, but with that price tag, I prefer to get 2 more quotes on it. But again, it's the short-term, quick fix stuff that I'm concerned.
We're already over budget on town hall maintenance and repairs. But we are under budget overall, so I would just recommend overspending that line. That amount that you're talking about, I think will be well within the overall budget and not needing to access ARPA funds for this year.
Mr. Scanlon?
I'd like to get the other 2 quotes because sometimes that gives opinions on stuff too, and they might see something that was different. When we did the insulation quotes, we found that different information was available from different contractors for the same things. So, and we do have a policy for, how much is our policy for quotes? 1,500, so that's over there. It's double.
A little bit more. Okay.
10 times. 15. 150 times.
I agree. I think 2 more quotes would be appropriate.
Okay, so we're gonna hold off on the $3,000 repair until we get the 2 other quotes. Okay. Does everyone agree with that? Okay. The next item is the assessment said we needed a mechanical dehumidification in the basement. We have one. Kevin took a look at the site and he recommends getting one additional dehumidifier to be put down at the other end to control the moisture. The one that's down there now is called the Santa Fe Classic. Kevin looked it up and it's about $2,000. He's recommending using the same one that we have down there. I can get 2 more quotes if you like, or we can move forward with Kevin's recommendation.
I have a question somewhat related to this. Are we, do the PD stuff downstairs still?
Yeah.
So are we doing this for the PD stuff?
Doing it for everything down there. I mean, there's a whole pile of sewer stuff down there as well.
If that room was cleared out, would we still need the dehumidification?
I would think so, yes, because we've got,
It's the mold and mildew.
we've got, because of the closeness of the Tilton Inn next to the building, when it rains, all that water splashes into the side of the building, and so we've got moisture.
Yes, Mr. Stanley?
One thing's about dehumidifiers is they fail every once in a while after so many years. That one's, I think, probably 6, 7 years old. And that if we can afford even having the other one so that if one fails, we're not, going to be stuck. It's not a real tight walls in here.
Can't we see if, an estimate to get like Bob Hoey to,
He was the one who did the one that we have one in the closed room. And that one's a quite expensive one, very expensive one, I think you said. So,
Well, that was the one you were referring to.
no, there's one down there now, and then there's one in that locked room, which is the one that I understand.
I think it's identical. I think the one came from the PD.
Okay,
I was thinking
We
of,
bought 2 of them at the time.
I was thinking maybe to get a quote from him to coat the wall, rubberize the wall, so that you're not getting as much condensation in.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure about that. I mean, that one it's a historic building. That's not, when they did the assessment, they didn't say anything about rubberizing the wall, so. I don't know enough about that, what that causes. Rubberizing in the inside of the brick wall, what that does on the other side, if it has to breathe or not.
Condensation.
Masonry. Pointing, I don't know.
And the water gets trapped between the rubber
Yeah.
membrane and the cement, so now you
Yeah.
have that stuff staying dry. So the only other thing is, how many BTUs that one is that's down there and the size of the square footage. That covers it, but the other part of it is circulation up around through there. And with all the paperwork and the boxes hold moisture, so once it does start getting damp, it's gonna stay damp. So, possibly see what the BTU size is and then go look at, purchase another one.
Let's just get it. As long as we know where it's coming, what pocket it's coming from.
Do we have $2,000 for that? Did you know that?
Again, there wouldn't be a line that would be sufficient to hold it right now. We have money for this room for chairs, when it's done, and equipment purchases, that's 1,500. And outside of that, we would just have to overspend the lines.
And you could buy one off the shelf at Lowe's.
You got constantly empty.
No, they.
Oh, the ones that have to drain.
Yeah, I mean, I've got one
So
that
you
does.
want me to get 2 more quotes?
It's up to anybody else. I think that's.
Yeah.
What anybody else.
No, I'd rather you get the same thing that's worked for us for many years.
Commercial duty.
Yeah.
I agree.
So get the one that Kevin's recommending.
I think
Does
so.
everybody
Because he says
agree?
it's the same one that we have, so.
Eric, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Next item, the Franklin Savings Bank grant for downtown parking. We were not successful in getting that grant. The new downtown parking, the cost of that grant for the new downtown parking signs is $5,600. We did budget $7,000 for signs, so I'm asking the board if they want to approve to move forward and get those parking signs built and installed.
Can you tell us what kind of signs they are?
I had showed you a while back, Vince Paratori has volunteered his time and services to create the signs. I showed you this before, and the location of the signs.
I'm a lot older than you. My memory doesn't work like steel brick.
So the sign is in keeping with what the historic sign used to look like. That was up. He's gonna try to keep.
So these aren't regular parking signs. These are like,
Custom
It's
made.
the ones to direct people to the parking lot.
Remember, we used to have a big one that was, what, 3x3?
Yeah, right.
Oh, this is the
nickels
old
and
one.
dimes.
So he's gonna try to,
Replicate it.
right.
Can't we use that one?
But
It was
it's
just
huge. It's huge.
Like that? But it was out on the pole out there in the brackets.
Yeah, but they're not letting us put them back.
No, not much.
and how many are we gonna get of these?
Where are they gonna go?
Okay. We walked around with Vince and Kevin and identified where the parking signs would go to point to municipal parking.
Does this include the poles?
Yes. This is what I submitted for the grant. So this is what, right here, this is what Vince has designed. And these, you can see the yellow and the red circles. I don't know if that one is up to.
Yeah, it does. It has it, yeah. I think they did the same thing. So they'll allow them to put them on those poles, but not the other pole?
No, we
No
have to
poles
put,
anymore?
no more poles. We have to put our own in. And Kevin will do that.
You don't see that. You don't see that though.
Should be a heart. Yeah,
Arch shape?
a little heart around the P and the arrow through it.
Not field arch.
That's right.
Tilton.
You know, I thought we should look at changing the arch to the church.
And you have this in your budget already?
7,000.
Yes.
town meeting budgeted 9,000. We encumbered 6,000 for the charrette. So there's a total budget initially of 15,000. We've spent some money today, but plenty.
Make a motion.
John?
Well,
Yes, John.
Before, so this is it for repairs that, to get started?
That's the first phase. There's, second, I want to get through the first phase and then we're going to look at the second phase. But part of the first phase is the door to the mechanical room. There are 2 doors down there that have to be, Kevin and I were down there the other day looking at the fire extinguishers it's in the way of being able to have the door closed, and for safety purposes, the doors to the mechanical
All around
room,
like that, so
when you walk down the stairs and go through that room where the dehumidifier, that mechanical equipment is, that door is propped open and it's supposed to be closed, and then there's another door that's supposed to be closed, but it can't close now because somebody installed a fire extinguisher in the door jamb, so you can't shut the door, so that's got to be moved.
Okay, so my concern is the collapsing ceiling above the town, the administrative assistant's office and above your office.
Yeah,
And-
you've mentioned that before.
Yeah, I've been mentioning it, this will be the 3rd time
Yeah.
I've mentioned it.
Yeah.
And it's actually collapsing and it's got like lead paint and plaster falling down and
Where's it
it's
going down to?
it's dangling above ceiling tile. It's
So
real bad.
It's underneath the cement tile.
It's above the ceiling.
Right, so.
It's
we're
like
not
this.
seeing it.
It's just like this.
Right,
and the
you're not
ceiling's
seeing it,
falling down.
but if,
And
That
it's
was one
it's
reason
probably
why that
1,200 pounds of
Right.
material.
We had the air quality study done, and they came back and said the air quality was fine in the building.
I'm talking about safety, a ceiling
No, I
falling down
understand
here.
that. That was not part of something that they looked at.
And that's why when we got that pack, I sent you that email in January, why haven't they looked at that? They said that wasn't in the scope, but my concern here is that we're doing this, but we're not looking at something that's a real safety issue for our employees. And I brought up a bunch of times. As soon as I went up there, I was like, I wouldn't work under that.
So what is it, you have brought it up in an email, but it never came back up in a discussion with the board as far as what is the direction, what are you telling me you want me to do?
Well, it did come back up because I
No, I
asked you,
understand, but nobody
and you
said
said
to
that I
me.
never sent you an email. And I said I did, but we found the email.
Yeah.
And I said, we need to look at that and
Right,
we
right.
have to get a price to fix that
But,
because
yeah,
it's
but
dangerous.
that
Where is
never-
that at?
Right, it's not anywhere because I never heard anything from the entire board about telling me to do that. So there was a discussion, but it's just.
I mean, it's a
just
safety
like-
issue that I reported to you twice.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, it's just like the insulation,
Not really.
Wait a minute, now there are 5 board members,
Mhm.
right? When you give me direction, which is what you did finally, as far as the board said, yes, Jeannie, please go get a quote for insulation for the senior center, then I did it. But if I'm hearing from one person and I'm not getting direction from the whole board, so I'm happy to do it if this is what you're telling me to do. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
So,
and I'm just going to say this, it's a safety issue. I've reported, this will be the 3rd time report, a ceiling collapsing. We had one selectman report an electric outlet outside, and we're going to take care of that right away, but not all of us agree. I'm telling you that there's a safety issue to our employees, again, and that I request that it be fixed. If all the other selectmen decide, no, don't listen to the Mr. Scanlon, Selectman Scanlon, that's their issue. I'm telling you, that's what's going on down there. And if you want, I can show anybody with the ladder or anything. I'm concerned about our employees. I'm concerned about you. It's above your desk too. And it could collapse on somebody. And in there, there is sealing the plaster. Tim's probably seen it.
I have seen
It is. I'd be concerned a lot. That's why I brought it up numerous times. And I don't see anything in there going forward with it.
They never looked at that, John. That was not anything that was in
Exactly.
there.
So what
Exactly.
John is saying now, can we get
Absolutely.
somebody please to look at it? Because that's what John is asking.
Yes.
And so I concur with John, please, can we get somebody to look at it? Because somebody sits right underneath where he is allegedly saying that this is gonna fall through. That's a liability.
Yes, let's have someone look at it.
I just want to make sure that we have funds before because we're already looking at where we're going to get funds for stuff from, that if it has to get repaired right away and somebody says it's going to cost X amount, that we have enough to cover it. And that's my concern, is that we get any emergency safety things taken care of right away first.
Would it be the same person or would it be someone different?
I have no idea. I'll just put it on my list.
I don't either.
Okay. Where are we at with parking? Are we not doing that? Just, that's out of economic development. If we're not gonna do that,
I said yes.
Yes, I see this.
Yes.
Yes.
okay, public hearing on the Tilton Island Bridge and the park restoration. I suggest we have a public meeting on that September 15th or the October meeting. Just want to find out what the board wants to do.
Personal opinions, I think we should address it sooner rather than later, so I would say the 15th. It's one voice though.
Do I have consensus?
Yes.
Yes. Well,
Well, I have one question to that. If we're doing a public hearing meeting on the Tilton Island Bridge, where is the public hearing meeting on the sidewalk?
Well, from the last meeting, the Economic Development Committee is having a roundtable discussion with businesses in November. And I checked with Eric on this just to make sure that I remember this correctly. And after that meeting happens, then there's going to be a public meeting / hearing with the selectmen, because the businesses who attend that meeting of the Economic Development Committee will inform additional information for the meeting after that.
That is not what we agreed on last 2 weeks.
Would somebody
2 weeks
please
ago.
tell me, did I get that wrong?
We said we agreed on having a public hearing to invite the people downtown. And you had mentioned the economic development meeting in November, and we said, no, we didn't want to wait that long. We wanted to get the public hearing done. Then, we mentioned the next couple of weeks if we could do it.
Scott and Eric.
I remember the order being that we were going to, the Economic Development Committee was going to try and circle and meet with the businesses downtown and then go to the public hearing. And this is also going back on what Selectman Constantino said on July 7th in the approved minutes, where it should be worded to say nothing on the sidewalks. But now we also know that there are selectmen sitting here who have decided to go to businesses and tell them, apparently, or try and pit select board members against the businesses downtown, and have gone in and said that we are trying to take away their space on the sidewalk. One of those select board members being one who said, okay, under the discussion of the sidewalk policy should be worded to say nothing on the sidewalks. Selectman Constantino.
The sidewalk policy tells you that you don't want anything on the sidewalk. I'm totally against that. I'm totally against that.
Then you're contradicting what you said in the minutes.
No, the minutes are contradicting what I said. Minutes cannot be 150%. Trust me.
Nothing can be 150%. Things
let
can
me
only be
try it.
100%.
It can't even be 100% on those minutes. Trust me.
Well, they were approved.
I'm telling you, I'm totally against the sidewalk policy to begin with. We said that we wanted the sidewalk policy as a public hearing because it is a selectmen's policy, not economic development policy. And that's why we said we, the selectmen, wanted it to be a public hearing here.
There's no economic development policy. It was a suggestion that came that came.
That's why we said we wanted it as a public hearing here.
Then why did you say that nothing should be on the sidewalks, but then you're going into businesses downtown?
I didn't say there should be nothing on the sidewalks. That's a misquote, Mr. Chairman.
It's right there.
I don't care whether it's right there or not, it's still a misquote. I will go to my grave saying that sidewalk policy is incorrect. We do not want to go with the economic development's proposal of saying no, nothing on the sidewalks.
I just have to say,
Mr. Scanlon.
There was an economic development proposal that came to the Board of Selectmen to approve on a new idea, and you made suggestions about moving ahead into the future and stuff like that. And this is the policy you wanted. And I suggested, and I think I was the one who suggested that we need to have the public and the business owners involved, and get their input from it. And that was a proposal brought from the economic development to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen said that they would like to have a public hearing on it. And you're saying that, you go talk to them and then have a public hearing. All I care is that before decisions made, that we have a public hearing here, like we do with parking or anything else. If the economic development wants to talk to people or discuss their ideas or present your views of downtown, I think that's your prerogative.
And it is also the prerogative of the selectmen to talk to anybody downtown about any issues going on in town.
But you cannot go in and pit.
That is your opinion, and only your opinion.
It's apparently the business owner's opinion as well.
That is your opinion and only your opinion.
It is apparently the business owner's opinion as well.
I doubt it.
no.
I doubt it. Totally.
You went into a business to pit whoever disagrees with the
And I disagree
removal of
with
things
you right
with the
now.
sidewalk. Watch your step.
Don't tell me to watch my step.
Oh,
I
I
have a
will.
right to my opinion, and I have a right to speak freely at a selectmen's meeting. Don't tell me I'm doing something that I'm not doing.
You don't have a right in terms of our ethics and policies of this town
And
to
you
go out
don't
and
have a
pit.
right to treat me like you're treating me right now. Do not bully me, Mr. Chairman.
It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Do not bully me. You cannot intimidate me by your bully.
I think that's the pot calling the kettle black.
Well, so be it.
Chairman Ruggles, I went
Mr.
to
Scanlon.
some businesses in downtown and I asked them if they're aware of changes of the sidewalk policy. 3 businesses I talked to said nobody ever brought it to their attention. And then other businesses contacted me, said nobody ever brought that to their attention. So yes, as a selectman, I have a right to find out the opinions of people in this town on changes to the laws and the way they operate their business, if they are informed on it, or if they should be attending a meeting to find out more information before this law is changed or this ordinance. I didn't want to change an ordinance without them knowing about it. They need to be, why they weren't invited, why they weren't told, it's not my.
The meeting
don't blame me.
hasn't been decided yet.
Yes, but
It
you
was
brought a
decided-
policy
it was
to
decided-
eliminate all of the sidewalk stuff. You
And
had a
we-
policy, you brought it before us to be voted on prior to talking to anybody downtown. So don't tell me I can't tell the people downtown what you're planning on doing to their businesses. Don't ever tell me that.
You can't.
I
You
can too.
You could take a
That's
message.
public information. I
you
can tell them
take-
whatever
you're right,
I
and
want.
they can go find it, but you can't.
No, I'm not gonna hide it from them, Scott.
I'm
No,
not asking
sir.
you to hide it from them.
And why didn't you tell them?
Because it's not my job to take a
Your economic
position.
development. Why didn't you ask them
We-
and tell them,
the
hey, I'm
Economic
gonna change
Development
your, I'm
Committee's
gonna
had-
change the rules of your sidewalk.
The Economic Development Committee's had how long to start a process of?
It's, you
going-
don't even have minutes posted.
Oh, yes,
Oh, I looked in there, there was minutes from January and there were, all the other ones were missing.
we have.
Oh, and I looked in there, they were all missing from,
Minutes
since
are-
The
January.
fact of the matter is, you wanted us to vote on a policy that we begged you to have a public hearing before you voted on it. And now you're arguing with us that we're telling you that we're putting words in your mouth and going out and pitting one another against each other. Ridiculous. You were trying to shove it down our throats a couple of weeks ago when we said we wanted a public hearing. Come on.
And we said that we were going to be meeting with the businesses in November.
But you wanted us to vote on it 2 weeks ago.
No, we stopped that.
After
It was a
we
month ago.
asked you to. You brought it up to us 3 times to vote on it.
I know they are. The minutes are on there. This came to our attention because a business owner reached out and said that 2 selectmen had visited and told them that the Economic Development Committee was trying to eliminate any obstructions on the sidewalks, which is not true. It's
And
what
I'm
it's
not
really
going to
been.
bring
You
up,
produced it.
No.
we
You
could
produced
sit
something.
here
Without
till
permits.
midnight.
No,
We could sit here till midnight, Jeannie, and talk to you about business owners that came to us and talked to us about the irregularities of the Economic Development Committee. So please, I am not
What
going to sit here.
irregularities? What are you going to accuse us
I am not going
of?
to sit here
Are
and
you
do this.
kidding me?
Do not sit here and banter back and forth. It's not to the liking of the town of Tilton
Are you
and not the
kidding me?
betterment of the town of Tilton. So please, let's not do this. It's ridiculous. Just to prove to, one more slap at John Scanlon and one more slap at Pat Constantino. We can't go a week without slapping each other. And this is what it's all about. Let's slap each other until we're down. These bullying tactics are not going to work on us.
they're coming from you.
No, they're not.
Yes,
Yes, they
I'm
are.
sorry.
No, I
Sorry, they are
disagree.
not.
They are.
I disagree.
Totally disagree
Be
with
on my
that.
side and see how it feels.
I've been on the other side now for a year with you.
And I will continue to talk to the business owners about any topics that come up in town that affects their businesses.
And that's fine.
And,
as long
and
as
you will
it's
be,
true.
and you will be in violation of
Bull,
standards
bull.
of conduct.
You're right.
I'm a
6 to 10.
selectman. I'm
You're
a
wrong.
selectman.
When giving a written or oral public opinion concerning issues facing or involving
And
the
that's a
town,
violation of my Bill of Rights.
the town,
You can't
all
talk.
members shall refrain from making statements on behalf of the town or the body upon which he or she serves.
And you
Unless
can't
such person
silence me as a selectman.
you are talking over me, has explicitly
No,
been
I'm talking under
authorized
you.
by the respective body. When acting as or perceived as acting as a representative of the official body, he or she represents an individual must always uphold the approved board point of view.
You're telling me that
I'm
you
telling you, you're in
produced.
direct violation of it by going
No.
out.
Now
No,
you're
sir.
talking over
No,
him.
you're not.
I apologize.
You're telling me that if we discuss that we're going to change the sidewalk policies for all the businesses downtown in public, that I can't go and ask the businesses what their opinion of it is.
The standards are here.
I can't, no, is
They're
that
right
yes or
here.
no? I cannot go and ask the businesses what their opinion is and if they're knowledgeable of a topic that came up at a meeting. Are
It's
you
not
saying I
your opinion.
cannot do that?
I'm saying
I'm
that you
asking
signed
no
off.
specific
So-
question. You're telling me I can't tell a person that operates a business downtown that we're going to change the ordinances in the way they operate their business.
In your position as a select board member? Apparently not, because you approved these. You approved these standards of conduct. Your signature is on them, and you went against it. You went against it.
I don't believe that's against it at all.
Well,
It isn't. I'm not, I will continue to
we
tell
can agree to
all
disagree.
business
That's written in this as
operators
well.
in this town or residents of any pertinent information that affects them.
Can I see that piece of paper, sir?
You have a copy in the back of your binder. You can use yours.
I'd be glad to.
Mhm. Back to the question that was asked by the town administrator. Public hearing, Tilton Island Bridge and Park Restoration, September 15th.
Yes.
And one yes.
I thought we said yes.
No, it was because the point of debate was whether we were going to do a discussion
Oh, the
about the sidewalks first versus the island and bridge restoration. I say yes to the public hearing for the Tilton Island Bridge. And to be honest, either date, just as long as as we're able to disseminate out some information.
Do you have any consensus on that?
We've got two.
Is there a motion?
It was approval. I was just looking for approval on setting the date.
So no consensus?
No consensus.
Okay, so we won't do it. That's it for my action items. There's one other item under the FYI. The LED lighting survey is complete, and Affinity will begin the work in the next couple of weeks to install the lights. The lighting plan was reviewed by the police chief, the fire chief, the DPW director. I believe 2 selectmen went out on a tour, and they are ready to deliver the lights and install. So didn't know if anyone had any questions before this starts.
On the LED lights? Can't wait, because all the lights that are out will come back on.
All set, Jeannie?
I have a question on Jeannie's report.
Selectman Constantino?
Can you find it again? I put it right away. Oh, there it is. under the 3 bids for the senior center. It's misleading what you have, Jeannie. You do have, it says you've scheduled 3 site visits for the quote for an installation for the senior center. 2 visits have occurred, and we have 1 quote for $12,929 and 1 quote for $3,800. You really have one quote that quoted 2 quotes, one for $4,499 just for the attic, and then added in a quote for $12,929 for the exterior walls, which includes free attic. So you wouldn't be paying the $4,499. And then the other quote was for $3,800, which is for a different type of insulation. One is cellulose and one is a premium foam. I think it's fiberglass.
Are there 3, you said, now?
Well, the other one is meeting with us on September 6th, I think it is. We don't have the 3rd one. But that second one is one quote, one US, one, won't say it out loud, but one person gave us 2 quotes. Gave us the attic as the RFP asked them to, and then there was a promo going on, so we asked them to give us the promo quote, which was exterior walls with the free attic. And I thought I had the original to give you, Jeannie. I'm just trying to find it. I guess I didn't bring it. I'll get you that original because I thought I had it with me. I don't. Still might be in my pack.
There's a quote from USA Insulation that included, in a sense, $4,500 rebate promo.
Yeah, I think
I don't know
that's
if they
one
mean-
they had for the
That was
the room for the attic, and then a separate one for the attic and the walls.
I don't know.
I did have it.
Oh, it's USA. And then I don't know if this one is. There's no, oh, that's the same business card. Let's see.
I don't think I had one.
Oh, this one looks like it's just business cards. It's attached to it.
You all set?
I'm all set. I'm done.
Next is new business. I have a statement that I prepared. Dear board members and town employees, when I joined the board just over 18 months ago, I came in with excitement. I saw the opportunities to work moving the town of Tilton forward. the other elected officials and employees of the town, I took an oath to serve, acknowledge the ethics expected for elected and appointed officials, and worked to understand the policies and procedures of the town for meetings and interactions with elected officials, employees, and the public alike. Have I been perfect in learning and executing the responsibilities of this position? No. Early on, I learned that I should not interrupt others, no matter how passionate I was about a subject. I continued to work on this and make sure that I interact with other board members appropriately. I knew that assuming an elected position would bring a small public spotlight on me. I knew with that position would come criticism and maybe dislike for my positions on issues or the way the town was being run. I was ready for that. I was ready for the fact that the members of this board would disagree, and I'm extremely comfortable being criticized. I see it as a way to learn and grow, and I take nothing personal. So what is the reason for this statement this evening? After 18 months of observing what we do here, it has become apparent that a member of this board may not hold the ideals set forth for us as important. Specifically, I will put forth sections 6.22 and 6.212 of the town's meeting procedures and standards of conduct. For reference, section 6.22 reads, board members should show respect for others at all times. Disagreement and debate are constructive and expected. An effective board is composed of members who are able to agree to disagree without personalizing issues. Section 6.212 reads, criticism of staff should be done through the town administrator, not in the public or social media. At our last meeting, we discussed the cemetery on Laconia Road. After reading an account given by a citizen with what seems to be extensive knowledge of that cemetery, 2 members of the board were critical of the reading of that information, one fairly vehemently and with multiple aggressive comments criticizing the reading. Background information that gives context would seem important in situations where citizens could have a passionate interest. This was information that was disseminated to the board as a whole. A board that during my time here has stressed the importance of being more transparent with information. Apparently some don't agree with being transparent. However, I do. The second incident during the last meeting was a direct attack on me and my position in regards to rectifying the cemetery situation. As you can see in the video from August 18th, after I read a quote from the Laconia Daily Sun that I made during the previous meeting on July 22nd, a board member commented, "You only said that after the press was involved." Not only was this a direct attack on me, but it was a blatant lie. I feel the intent was to make me look bad, but the lie is revealed because the quote was used in the Laconia Daily Sun. The quote that I read in the August 18th meeting was a direct quote from our board meeting on July 22nd, 2022. Prior to that July meeting, I had stated at least once that I would like to see us work with the landowner to rectify the cemetery situation. Whether directly or indirectly, insinuating that someone is a liar when it plain and simply isn't true is reprehensible, especially for an elected official. Another point of disrespect in the last meeting came at the 1 hour and 26-minute mark. I was commenting on how municipalities could assist landowners and land purchasers that have private cemeteries on their property to avoid issues in the future. I pass by the Laconia Road property up to 6 times per week and have been thinking about this issue since it first came to the board's attention. In this case, the disrespect was not verbal, but physical reactions of eye rolling, body language insinuating disgust, and actions that would be of that of a petulant child and not an official elected to lead a town. Finally, there have been situations that have openly, in both direct and veiled ways, violated section 6.212 with criticism of staff in a public forum. Actions like this are commonly done to try and either tarnish someone's reputation, criticize a department as a whole, or attempt to exert undue influence or control of a situation. That is not the way elected officials should speak or behave if they want their departments and employees to do their best and flourish. We need to be better than that type of behavior and mindset. A citizen of the town came to a meeting earlier in the year to question this very issue. Simply, we need to do better. Our job as elected officials is not to control, but to monitor in the name of the voting taxpayers. If we try to control too much and not trust our employees, then we create a toxic situation. As Lord Acton once wrote, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I respectfully request that this statement be posted to the full minutes. I will be able to supply hard copies to the board, town administrator. In addition, I will supply a digital copy to be put into the minutes. When I do that, I will copy all members of the board and the town administrator so that you can all see there were no changes to this text. Respectfully, Scott Ruggles. Is there any other new business? Petulant child. I make a motion to adjourn.
Weren't we going to review the minutes that we put off till the end of the meeting?
Good point, Mr. Stanley.
August 4th, all right.
Yep, review of August 4th.
Make a motion to table the minutes of August 4th.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
We tabled this already once.
Any further discussion?
Call the question.
Question has been called. Those in favor of the motion to table the minutes of August 4th, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion
Motion
fails.
fails.
So last week,
How did the motion pass?
No, it failed.
Oh.
Motion failed.
You said pass.
No, she said failed. Motion failed.
so last week, I had some amendments that I produced, and there was some changing of the words that was suggested of the word renegotiated. And I was wondering if anybody came up with a better word, then that's what I recalled saying.
I would, John, if you don't mind, I would, when we had talked about it, I suggested clarified. Because a bid can't be renegotiated, it can just be clarified. So.
And
Because when we had.
I didn't say reclarified.
No, I just said.
Yeah, but I said renegotiated,
Mhm.
and that was my amendment. And let me guess,
I've seen
copy.
Keep going.
I didn't have the price of the truck in there. I left that blank. I don't recall what that
It was 9,000.
was. It
Mhm.
9,000 a month or something.
I have a question reading this. How can we allow after the motion in a second, add the following? Selectman Pyra asks for clarification. If 2 selectmen vote in favor and 2 opposed, the motion would fail. Town administrator stated a tie vote would be a failed motion. Well, there was a motion and a second, and we added outside comment.
Where,
The last paragraph.
Of John's,
Of John's.
I don't know I don't remember where that falls into context.
If what?
I don't know where in the meeting that comes to.
You don't recall asking?
I
that?
remember asking, but I don't know the when.
So,
If that makes
was there a question to me that I don't understand?
No, the question's not to you. The question is to Chairman Ruggles. If a motion is made and the motion is second, then the discussion is kept within the Board of Selectmen and not answered by outside of the Board of Selectmen. And yet it says here that that's exactly the opposite of what happened.
I don't understand.
When a motion is made
Yeah,
and seconded, after that, it ends all public discussion. It is only within the Board of Selectmen that can answer the questions. Anybody that asks a question, it's kept within the Board of Selectmen. It's not kept, anybody else can answer unless specifically asked that person permission to ask a town administrator, permission to ask the finance director, permission to ask someone in the audience.
so what you're saying is I should not have answered the question.
Someone in the Board of Selectmen should have asked permission to ask you to ask the selectmen, to ask you. That's the proper way to do it.
Is that in Robert's, I guess.
Robert's rules.
I guess I don't, it's news to me. I'll have to look at Robert's.
It ends the public discussion. It ends the discussion.
Last time I checked, we are not bound by Robert's rules. We are not
When you make
bound.
a motion to,
We are not.
motion in a second, that once you make a motion in a second, it stays within the Board of Selectmen to enter into discussion. Anytime it's free game, but when you make a motion in a second, when you say any discussion, it stays within the Board of Selectmen. If the Board of Selectmen is the ones that's making it, same with the Planning Board or Conservation Commission or anybody else. I just read it there. Now, I also have another question. And I know this will draw some questions, but I want this to be figured out at some point. On page 1 of 2, under solid waste proposal, there was a motion, a second discussion. 2 people voted for, one opposed, and 1 abstained, and you took that into a positive. That abstention should have been the intent of the person that abstained. not in a positive.
Mr. Chairman, because I thought this might come up, I did check with legal counsel, and that motion did carry, it was appropriate.
Can I have the copy of you sending that to legal counsel and their answer, please?
Absolutely, I don't know if I have it with me right here, but.
You could send it to me.
Yep.
What's the question?
The question was,
that the legal-
there's two in favor, one opposed, one abstained, and the abstention was in favor.
No, the abstention's not a vote.
Well, but you don't have a majority of the voting
You do,
of the quorum.
you do. I checked.
How do you have a majority of the quorum if one is a,
When that, just so you know, when that vote happened, I checked with NHMA because I figured it would come up. And I just wanted to make sure it was a legal vote.
Did you?
I will
think-
send you, I know you don't trust what I said.
I'm not, that's not what I'm saying at all.
That's the insinuation.
It's not even the insinuation.
If you're asking for clarification, it's
I'm
insinuating you don't trust it. I understand, getting the copy then proves to you
Excuse me,
that
my
I'm
conversation
speaking.
is with Mike.
I'm speaking.
I was speaking and you interrupted me.
You stopped. I
I
decided.
did not stop.
I did not interrupt. You had stopped.
I did not.
And I was
You
defending our town
interrupted me.
employee.
I'm not insinuating anything with the town employee.
Then why do you need confirmation?
Because I'm interested in the answer.
The answer was the vote passed and it was legal.
I
She's told you that. So once again, and I will highlight it right from my letter, I have no problem doing this. I have no problem blowing it open in public. It shows a lack of trust for your employee. It shows a complete lack of
If
trust.
you think that my questioning anybody, whether it's an employee or a selectman or anything, negates and mistrusts them, you're sadly mistaken. It's because I would like to learn about my question that I just proposed.
I think you're sadly mistaken in the interpretation of how it feels to
You
an
know, you
employee.
can play this bully tactic all you want. I'm asking a simple question.
And you got an answer, but you
And
don't
I would
it.
like verification of the answer. It's simple as that.
So there it is. You just said it. It's on tape. You want verification because you don't trust the answer from your employee.
I would like
I'm done now.
verification, period. End of discussion. It is my right as a selectman. And it is not because I mistrust Jeannie. Whether you believe it, I agree to disagree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Right back at you.
When you can, Jeannie, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and just again, because I checked, if you can't agree on how to insert minutes, minutes do not have to be approved. So if you can't agree on additions, you just don't have.
I think the question was, what John was saying was, because we didn't have a full board, there wasn't quorum to make the affirmative. And when there's not a quorum to make the affirmative, is that abstention a yes or a no?
The abstention goes to the majority, and the majority were the two who voted for.
see, I read in New Hampshire Municipal Association in 2017, they said that a abstention is neither a yay or a nay vote. And that's from New Hampshire Municipal Association.
Exactly.
And that there has to be a majority of the quorum.
Well, I will get you what I received from NHMA, and you'll see what they said. What I was speaking to was saying to the board that if tonight you can't agree on the amendments or the changes you want to make to August 4th because there was no audio, so there's no really verification if board members, you don't have to approve the minutes. they can just remain draft. There's no legal requirement to approve minutes.
So I'm going to read the minutes into there and request that these be attached to this meeting. Directly before the words "and after the departure," add the following. Selectman Scanlon asked Casella representatives if there was a maximum that the town could be charged, since the bid shown that the town would be responsible for the least cost of blank, I didn't know the number, if a truck was needed to be leased, as well as additional fuel costs if the price exceeded $4 per gallon. Selectman Scanlon was told that the bid was renegotiated and that those parts would be removed from the final contract. During the discussion, Selectman Scanlon asked if we are voting on the actual bid submitted or on a renegotiated bid. Selectman Scanlon stated that he felt it was improper to allow a contractor to change the terms of the bid after submitting, and how can we vote on a bid that's been changed and not submitted bid? Not the submitted bid. Excuse me. Selectman Scanlon stated that he was not comfortable with voting on the bids that were not what was submitted, and perhaps Penard should also have been included in the associated costs of leasing and fuel, and further information was needed. Selectman Scanlon was told by the administrator that we had to vote since we have reached the deadline for voting on the bids. After the motion and second, add the following. Selectman Pyra asked for clarification on the 2 selectmen vote in favor and 2 opposed. Would the motion fail? Town administrator stated that a tie vote would be a failed motion. That is my motion to amend the minutes that consist of what? How many lines are there? 2 lines for the largest contract that we have every year, our trash contract. So I'm asking for that to be added to as my amendment, as that is what I stated at the meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Stanley.
And I believe I forgot there, perhaps somebody else can provide me with the RFP for the bids that we were given to look at. You have that?
It's in your email.
Send your email, John.
From Jeannie.
Jeannie sent it to me. Did you send it to everybody?
I sent it to John and I sent it to you. You were the 2 who asked me for it.
Got it?
No, I'm not seeing that. When did it come in?
Well, this afternoon, I think. Jeannie sent it to me.
I know I got it, but I just don't have it for me. It's agreement, draft agreement. Is that it? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Well, I can look through this, it's getting late, but the reason why I'm having these in here is because this was a statement that I made. And in our terms of our bids and asking for our bids, it did clearly say that no verbal agreements or that will be accepted or anything. When we voted on this bid, we were not voting on what was actually before us. And to this date is still being renegotiated with prices. And I asked specifically these questions because it was an open-ended bid that we received. It was not locking us into any amount. And therefore, I felt it was unfair and unlawful to go and accept a bid that had been altered. So at this point, that's my amendments to it, and I would appreciate that I do not get censored.
Attorney Radigan might disagree. His response to the questions about this were, hi Jeannie, as we discussed, I see no problem with the town proceeding to enter into a contract with Casella Waste if it chooses to do so, as the deletion by Casella of its number 6 bid response provision is not related to the bid specification/requirement elements that the town informed all bidders about. So that change is not an impediment to the town electing to contract with Casella, as the provision has nothing to do with other bid responses.
And what does that have to do with what I stated at the meeting?
Well, I'll just tell you, John, that I won't approve something when it says the word renegotiated, because you cannot renegotiate a bid. A bid is not a lawfully binding document. It is something that puts a proposal out there. And if companies, whether it be a large corporation, et cetera, have a question about a bid, they are allowed to get and have clarification about said bid. So, and we had wondered about the lease, the $9,000 lease per month, because I'm not going to speak for it. We had wondered about the $9,000 lease per month, and we had asked if we could get clarification on that, because more than likely it would have impacted our decision if we were going to have to pay $9,000 extra per month to a company for that. So we asked for clarification. So that's where I stand.
And what was the letter to Radigan
It's on
that
there.
prompted the answer?
It was on.
No, this is the response, is it?
No,
There's
but
a
that's the
response
response.
and the
What
emails
was
below.
what was the question?
Would you like me to read it when I get it back from John?
So did you already discuss this before the meeting?
No.
You didn't discuss it before the meeting?
No.
Did I get a copy of that?
No.
Why wouldn't I get a copy of that letter?
It was just handed to me. It was literally just handed to me.
So I don't understand if this information comes back and regarding stuff and questions, why it's not shared with the board.
I'm sharing it with you now. So as the town administrator, I try to be prepared, and I know I've said this before, I try to be prepared, anticipate what the questions that the board is going to ask, anticipate what problems might come up based on the last meeting, the way that the vote went. I was not sure myself. I wanted to make sure that the vote was legitimate. I wanted to make sure, because there was a statement made that we negotiated the bid, which concerned me because I don't think either Tim or I thought we did anything wrong or illegal. And I wanted to know if we did and if we were exposing the town to anything. So I checked. And I'm bringing that forward. I handed it to Scott because I have been, I don't know what the word is, but I have been reprimanded by board members for speaking. So I figured I won't speak. I will give it to the chair and he can speak to it. I'm trying to do my job. And I know sometimes you don't like the answers I give, but I give the answers that I find. And I'm trying to protect the board. I'm trying to serve the selectmen. And not just one selectman, but all selectmen.
What are proposal exceptions?
In the bid that Casella provided, there was a section that had 6 or 7 items, right, Tim?
Yes.
One of the items, number 6, said that, I think it said something about there might be a possibility of having to get a rental truck if they didn't have the equipment, that it was a possible proposal exception. So we went back to Casella because it was a question of the board. You know, we were concerned about it, and they said, well, as it turns out, we've got the truck, so this is a moot point. And I checked with the attorney to make sure that we had not renegotiated anything, that we had not done anything illegal, and town council had advised that no, we had not, because it was not a renegotiation. It was something that might be a possible exception, and it turned out it wasn't necessary.
Any further discussion?
So what I'm hearing you say is that you are going to say no to accepting the minutes so that they will just be put in there as minutes that are accepted because they weren't accepted. Is that correct?
No,
So
I thought the motion was to add your addendum.
Yes. And
So I'm saying no to that.
If you say no to that, and then you say no to anything else, then the minutes just get posted without allowing me, so basically I'm censored from stating what I said in the minutes.
Well, we haven't gone to vote yet, so.
Just watch.
So, okay, I mean.
Can call the question.
Question has been called. Those in favor of the motion to add Mr. Scanlon's addendum to the minutes, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Nay. Motion fails.
Exactly as I stated.
I believe that that's illegal to do. You actually stated those in your minutes.
Mhm.
I don't know that for sure, but
You just said it. You don't know that for sure. We don't know for sure he said that.
oh, we do.
At the last meeting,
Oh,
you
we
said
do.
that you heard me say it.
It's a video. You
There's no
can-
audio.
You can
No,
go,
but at the last meeting, you said you heard me say that.
right. You did.
And you said the only thing that was up was the
The
word
only thing you
renegotiated.
questioned was the word renegotiated.
He didn't take it out.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
And you're ending up censoring him because he said that. And there are so many things that we could say about the chairman's report that he wants in the minutes, and yet we didn't censor him because that's his report. That's his belief. That's what he wants in the record. We could have easily said no to that, but we didn't. Now, what would he have felt if we all said no to that?
Once again, my skin is thick. It's not gonna bother me.
I'm going to make a motion
But
to
it's not, that's not the
amend the
point,
minutes
Scott.
and just eliminate the word renegotiated in that first paragraph for my amendment.
You're wanting to fix this and it's not fixing it.
So, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion.
I've changed it to the way that you suggested.
So
Good point.
clarification.
And I call the question.
I don't think you can make the motion and call the question right after another without an opportunity for
Well, somebody
discussion.
else can make it.
Call the question.
Question has been called. All those in favor of the motion to add the addendum without the word renegotiated, please say aye.
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 Nay.
Motion passes. Any other new business? No. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 No. Let the record show.